Hey everyone, welcome back. Chapters 1081 through 1100 of the previous episode. Qinmu secretly guides the Dragon Qilin to defend the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. After Divine King Gongyun heals his severe consciousness injuries, Qinmu witnesses the dark reality of the Dragon Han era, realizing the revolution merely replaced ancient gods with oppressive half-gods. He bravely helps hold up the falling celestial river to save humanity. Returning to the present, Qinmu engages in a fierce duel with Butcher, unleashing his spirit to finally enter the path of the knife. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Tales of Hurting Gods audio series. Chapter 1101, Knocking on the Southern Heavenly Gate. The Dragon Qilin retrieved the bottle of Flask World and used the primordial liquid to heal Butcher's injuries. Mute and Blind laughed and Mute gestured. Your Emperor's Throne technique is complete, so why did you force him to enter the path with the knife instead of imparting the technique to him? Butcher retrieved the medicinal pills that Apothecary made for him to stabilize his chaotic vital qi and nourish his divine treasures in Celestial Palace. He then shook his head and said, "You lot know nothing. I created the technique so it's suited to me, but it might not be suited to him. The best teachers never impart their own techniques. Instead, they get others to comprehend their own paths." He looked up into the sky while thinking about the name of the first heaven of Qinmu's knife path as he said, "My older disciple, Ba Shan, couldn't make it. He lacked meaning in the path, so he could only go to the wayside. He could become a grandmaster by combining combat techniques, though, so I imparted my technique to him. However, Moore is different. He can go further, so he must comprehend for himself." He stretched himself as his eyes jumped, then begrudgingly said, "This fellow's power is too strong. His spirit energy settled for way too long. His journey also gave him a lot of benefits, so when he used his knife path, I almost thought I couldn't take it." Blind's gaze flashed as he said, "His sword path started from the 10th heaven of Village Chief's sword path, which he used as a foundation for his own sword path. His knife path is based on your 9 skills of heaven knife, so when he started he had the 9 heavens of knife path. This little fellow has such attainments at 40 years old." Yenner said. "Master said he just reached 10 years old. Shameless. How shameless? Shameless beyond belief." Butcher, Mute, and Blind scolded until they were satisfied. They felt relieved after that. Cultivation actually depends on Tao heart and one's horizons. Butcher said with gratitude, "If an old farmer farmed for his entire life and thought only about that, it would be hard for him to get out of it. He would be a farmer forever. If his focus wasn't just on his land, he could discover a more vast world outside. He wouldn't be limited to that land, and he could walk out of that land for greater attainments." Blind nodded and added, "It's important to broaden one's horizons and grind one's Tao heart. One's limitations lie in one's profession. One's highest attainment would be becoming a professional in their profession. To become a grandmaster, one has to widen their horizons and have further ambitions to elevate themselves." Mute nodded and added, "One can only improve if they aren't limited by things around them. Moors is determined to use his knife path beyond just killing pigs. So, the first heaven of his knife path is like the 9th heaven of Butcher's knife path." Butcher was displeased, but that was what he meant too. Qinmu ground his Tao heart first and expanded his horizons further, so he could open his own path on his knife path foundations. Such a form of passing things down made him delighted. Yenner shockingly asked the Dragon Qilin, "Do all of Master's elders have such a high opinion and expectations of him?" The Dragon Qilin nodded and said, "That's why Cult Master often returns to learn from them." Yenner spat out her tongue. Butcher glanced at Blind and Mute before saying, "I imparted my path. What about you two?" Blind hesitated before saying, "It's easy to talk about the formation Celestial Palace, but it will be hard for him to comprehend the path and his own Celestial Palace." Mute gestured. "The forging Celestial Palace isn't hard. What's hard is how to get him to comprehend his own path." Both of them grew worried. Yenner hesitantly asked, "Fatty Dragon, was it easy for them to comprehend their own Emperor's Throne techniques? I saw how difficult it was for those in history. It was hard for the latter because they started with nothing and were often alone in their efforts due to lack of exchange in Emperor's Throne techniques." The Dragon Qilin explained, "However, eternal peace is different. For multiple emperors' throne, techniques of eternal peace can be learned in any academy. In eternal peace there are dozens of them, and nobody is forbidden from learning them. However, there are more of other types of techniques. He hesitated before saying, "Now there are more emperors' throne techniques. If you have the power, you can even learn dozens of them. However, opening one is difficult. It's even more difficult to cultivate the emperor's throne realm. One can't only rely on techniques. There are many emperor's throne techniques in the celestial heavens, but there are few who reach that realm." Yennefer spat out her tongue. Eternal peace had a vague atmosphere to it. It was filled with flourishing vitality and passionate scenes, unlike the intrigues of the celestial heavens. Of course, the rapid development of eternal peace was still related to heavenly masters like Woodcutter and Yen Yunxi, along with what the founding emperor era passed down. Before the eternal peace calamity, the four great heavenly teachers of the founding emperor era entered eternal peace and provided the results of their reform to the various great academies of eternal peace. Results from various paths like medicine, painting, forging, formation, sword, knife, construction, design, farming, and animal husbandry were all absorbed by eternal peace. It was the fastest period of development for eternal peace. During the eternal peace calamity, Qin Mu carried eternal peace through it, which secured eternal peace's foundation and the gains of the reforms. Thus, eternal peace's development could continue. Another interesting phenomenon was how Yen Yunxi took eternal peace's reform results to Carefree Village, in the hope that Carefree Village could absorb them and create a path. What she didn't expect was how not only did Carefree Village not absorb them, but it also remained stagnant until Qin Mu's arrival. What was most intriguing was how the first to absorb eternal peace's reform results and come up with new things was founding emperor, the person that Carefree Village's people grumbled the most about. He opened the 20th sword form and got the sword path to rise another heaven, allowing him to get closer to the ultimate realm of the sword path. Studying books and the blade for 10 years, traveling west to the city of Dragon Han, Qin Mu's loud cry came from the skies. The masses looked up and saw Qin Mu waving his blade. His knife light crisscrossed like chains, flashing like lightning and rumbling like thunder. "I hereby knock on the southern gate with the intent of retrieving the public secretary with my long knife." He leaped and fell from the sky, appearing in front of Butcher and the others with a divine knife before returning it to Butcher. He bowed and said, "Grandpa Butcher, I know what the first heaven of my knife path shall be called. It shall be named Knocking on the Southern Heavenly Gate." Butcher laughed and said, "Not bad, it's meaningful. I brought you into the knife. Your future still depends on you."
Qin Mu nodded.
In the spirit embryo divine treasure, the knife path celestial palace was reassembling itself. It reformed itself to become more complete. Butcher didn't impart techniques to him. Instead, he guided him into the knife path, so he had to rely on himself for the perfection of his knife path celestial palace. Butcher's teaching method was barbaric and direct. He wasn't the best teacher, but he was also the best. Qin Mu closed his eyes as the buildings of the Knife Path Celestial Palace were erected. The divine palaces and halls were formed under the knife aura. The Jade Pool and Jade Stage were built rapidly before creating the God Execution Stage and Jade Capital. Thousands of knife auras stacked together in the central fortress of the Jade Capital to form a numinous sky hall based on the knife path. The corner of his spirit embryo's eye twitched. The knife path's numinous sky hall was too strong. It had to experience a lot of grinding for it to comprehend the knife path's extreme and enter the hall to become the knife emperor of the emperor's throne. Yet, what terrified him was the God Execution Stage formed by two knife lights. They were formed by the coalescing of the great Taoists of the knife, and were sharp enough to cut through everything. Although his knife path primordial spirit was still under the southern heavenly gate, he couldn't help but shudder upon looking at the two knife lights die in the future. He was most certainly going to step on the knife path's God Execution Stage and endure it. Whether he could take it, he didn't know. Qin Mu calmed himself as his primordial spirit entered the southern heavenly gate to feel the power of the southern heavenly gate's knife path. His cultivation rose again as his true God realm rose once more. All sorts of comprehensions about the knife path appeared in his head. After a while, Qin Mu absorbed the comprehensions, opened his eyes and said, "I brought some treasures back. Grandpa Butcher, see if there's anything useful." He waved and covered the sky to form an enclosed space to put all sorts of treasures. They were the treasures from the ancestral court that he stole from Clear Sun Hall. The masses were shocked as they looked at the hovering treasures. Mute was exceptionally excited as he caressed a pearl while trembling. It vibrated and showed the landscape within. Mute mumbled, "Muir, did you clear Celestial Emperor's vault?" "Yep."
Chinmu replied cheerfully.
"Well done." The three elders gave him a thumbs up and praised. As expected of Cripple's disciple. "I also have some roots of Mother Earth here, the roots of the primordial tree, which are exceptional like these treasures." Chinmu took out many roots and said, "The primordial tree is the treasure tree of the ancestral court. It's easy to forge an emperor's throne divine weapons from it. Take whatever you need, grandpas. By the way, did you all meet Prince Yuming?" "Prince Yuming?" Butcher thought about it, and Chinmu drew Prince Yuming before he recognized him. "Oh, so he's Prince Yuming. He's an honest man. He first came to Eternal Peace's capital, and told the emperor that he came to back them up on the order of North Deity. North Deity also sent people that looked weird with 300 to 505 thunder pots too."
Chinmu smiled.
"That's him. He's the son of North Deity, an emperor's throne realm being. Where is he now?" The emperor tested him and felt that he was incapable despite his high cultivation realm. What he learned was outdated and old. Blind took one of the roots of the primordial tree. He was satisfied and said, Thus, the emperor told him to go to every academy to learn and study every technique and record. I don't know which academy he's in now. Prince Yuming was one of the few strong practitioners of the emperor's throne in the Dragon Han era. Yet, when he reached Ling Yuxiu's place, he became an incapable person, which was amusing. However, it was to be expected. Although he was very talented, he was suppressed for 600,000 years without contact with the outside world. His divine arts were still divine arts from then. Although his realm was high and he was the highest realm being in Eternal Peace, he wasn't really useful to Eternal Peace. If he could absorb the results of Eternal Peace's reform, his cultivation would grow exponentially. Then, he would become a major pillar of Eternal Peace. Blind took the primordial tree root and divine spear Long Tu. The spear immediately entrenched itself in the root to absorb its power. Blind continued. The gods sent by North Deity are under me. I teach them every day, for they aren't that useful. He couldn't help but shake his head, saying, In terms of formations, North Deity Xianwu's formations are too outdated. I have to teach them from the start, so I sent them to primary school to learn with those little girls. Qianwu blinked and said, There are many pretty girls in the Black Tortoise god race. Blind utilized Long Tua to refine the primordial tree root before saying, They are all serpents of Wu. They aren't that pretty. They just know how to decorate themselves. Qianmu was speechless. He asked whether West Deity sent gods too. Mute assembled a divine axe from a box, tried to cut open a divine mountain and said, There were ladies with exposing clothing that acted sweetly. We got them to work in the shipyards. Qianmu probed. The ladies of the West Pole are beauties. Have you thought of marrying one of them, Grandpa Mute? Women are bothersome. Mute was displeased as he shook his head and said, Those white tiger ladies are strong and pretty but also bothersome. It's hard for me to simply teach them how to forge. Marrying one, I have neither the time nor the energy for them. Qianmu was stunned as he advised. Grandpa Mute should work hard to repopulate the Heavenly Works god race. Mute coldly laughed and said, The Heavenly Works god race are humans too. Whoever holds the path of forging is a heavenly worker. You are one too. Give birth to a couple of them, and stop bothering me with these trivial things. Yenner said to the Dragon Qilin, Now I know why Master isn't married yet. The Dragon Qilin nodded. Do you think he has hope? No. I feel the same. Mute was the #1 heavenly worker of Eternal Peace, so he had high standards for materials. He didn't directly choose an ancestral court treasure mountain like the cheap Wei Suifeng. He instead took a piece out of every treasure to combine them to forge a divine weapon. He was an expert in combining materials. He had once seen High Emperor Sword God by Chuer and got some books from the High Emperor era from her. Then, the divine mines for divine gold in the primordial realm were all held by Mother Earth. The South High Emperor Celestial Heavens held very few of them, so they had great attainments in matching materials. One has to understand the attributes of every divine gold, regardless of how good the material is. One even has to understand the different characteristics of divine gold to create good divine weapons. Mute mixed the divine gold and divine materials, then glanced at Qin Mu and said, "Give your broken carriage to the White Tiger heavenly workers for repair and follow me for some time. I'm forging some treasures for the old guys of disabled elderly village, and I can teach you some things. Blind will help me use microscopic forging to create the best divine weapons. Your sword pellet also requires some reforging." Qin Mu hesitated before saying, "Before this, I still have to do one thing. I might not have the time." Mute asked, "How long do you need?" Qin Mu replied, "Until the day after tomorrow. I'll finish it by then." Mute loaded the materials into the box, lifted it, and left. Before he left, he said, "After you're done, find us at the shipyard. Butcher, inform village chief, granny, and the others to be there together. They have to be there for me to forge them ultimate divine weapons." Butcher left. Qin Mu gave the broken heavenly dragon treasure carriage to the White Tiger heavenly workers of the shipyard. Those lively ladies got excited as they said, "Your carriage is broken again? We fixed it the last time. How great of it to be broken again so quickly." Qin Mu left with a dark face, returning to the capital to see Gong Sun Yen. Gong Sun Yen lived in the downtown area of the capital. When she saw his return, she was really happy, welcoming him with a water pot. Qin Mu allowed her to water him before saying, "From now on, don't speak. Don't ask anything even if you encounter anything. Don't say anything, for I am here for everything." Gong Sun Yen was going to speak, but Qin Mu pressed on her mouth with his finger. Gong Sun Yen blinked, then stopped trying to speak as she blushed. Qin Mu took out the Grand Emperor's seal and sacrificial altar. The eye at the heart of his brows opened as he gathered his focus. His vital qi and consciousness surged forth as his eye shot out a ray of light into the altar. The Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar, which was only the size of a palm, was illuminated by his consciousness and vital qi. It instantly emitted a gentle hum as it gave off waves of faint fluctuations. Slowly, some runes appeared on the altar. Those were the imprints of Qin Mu's spirit. The runes then became brighter, shining beams of light on the Grand Emperor's seal. Qin Mu circled the tiny altar and seal, his hands moving quickly, imprinting even more runes on the two treasures. Gradually, he had more and more arms. The mudras on each hand were constantly changing as the number of imprinted rune markings increased. After a long time, Qin Mu stopped to rest. Gong Sun Yen had some questions for him, but she remembered Qin Mu's words and held back. Qin Mu moved to the base of the primordial tree and buried the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar at its roots. He then rose into the air and arrived in the upper capital city, placing the Grand Emperor's seal at the crown. Gong Sun Yen followed him around. After Qin Mu was done, his 10 fingers moved rapidly, shooting out seal after seal. Suddenly, the Grand Emperor's seal and altar trembled. Gong Sun Yen let out a soft cry. Her body felt weak and itchy. It was as if there were countless little bugs burrowing around inside her. However, this strange phenomenon disappeared quickly. Qin Mu heaved a sigh of relief and said, "For the next 2 days, don't talk to anyone, don't eat or drink, don't open your mouth." Gong Sun Yen nodded obediently.
Jenna fattig dragon. Watch over here.
Don't let her open her mouth, no matter what. The dragon Qilin and Yenner hurriedly acknowledged. Qin Mu left the capital city and arrived at the opposite shore facing the mud river. He chose a deserted area and opened the eye at the heart of his brows, visualizing a sacrificial altar. After that, he got busy placing rows and rows of runes of great Tao on the altar. After he was done, he cut his wrists and traced those runes with his body's divine blood. While he was busy, Gong Sun Yen was helping Yenner set up a bird's nest. Yenner had always liked to serve others, but every time she met Gong Sun Yen, she would be waited upon impeccably by this girl instead, making her feel very at ease. Yenner Fatty Dragon and me will be getting married soon. After that, we plan to have a nest of small birds and let them stay here with you.
Jenna smilet.
Gong Sun Yen beamed and was about to speak when Yenner hurriedly covered her mouth. "You can't speak." Gong Sun Yen frowned. The dragon Qilin said, "What Cult Master did was for your own good. His divine art can keep you from being invaded by external enemies. However, this divine art requires you to close your senses. When you open your mouth, energy will be lost, and his divine art will then not be able to help protect your corporeal body. If Mother Earth strikes, she could take over your body. Gong Sunyan blinked and was confused. Mother Earth wants to take over my body? Suddenly beams of colorful light rays appeared in the sky. A pair of phoenixes flew over, circling the primordial tree as they danced. Their movements were graceful, and they began to sing. Phoenixes, where do you come from? Crying and spreading your wings high up above. The mountain wind passes through the jade flute, while the bamboo fruits are abundant and plentiful. In the capital city, the people danced in joy when they heard the singing. To them, the arrival of phoenixes was a sign of good fortune. Gong Sunyan also started dancing in joy. She had long wanted to have a pair of phoenixes. Now that she saw those phoenixes, she was tempted to fly over and lure them into her nest. Suddenly, a dragon sparrow flew out from the nest on the tree crown. Without any explanation, it seized and ate those phoenixes, stunning the people in the capital city. Yenner swallowed them and returned to her nest. She then said ruthlessly to Gong Sunyan, Yenner, they were sent by Mother Earth to trick you into opening your mouth. Don't fall for it. Gong Sunyan felt wronged. At that moment, another pair of phoenixes flew over and sang loudly. There are phoenixes in the primordial realm, living in my parasol tree branches, ready to return jubilantly. The dragon sparrow flew up again and ate up that pair of phoenixes in front of everyone in the capital city. It then perched itself prominently on the crown of the primordial tree, staring ferociously in all directions. When the people of Eternal Peace's capital city saw that, they fell quiet and shivered. In the lower capital city, waves of fragrance traveled over as golden springs surged from the ground. Every well in the capital city was filled with overflowing fragrance, as all sorts of colored lotus flowers bloomed from them. Each of the flowers then gave birth to young girls who laughed as they said in succession, I'm so happy, let's look for elder sister. Those young girls then headed towards the primordial tree one after another. The people in the capital city were dumbfounded. Those girls were gorgeously dressed. When they found Gong Sunyan, they pulled her to sing and dance while smiling. Yinzi, don't you recognize us? We are the fruit that you planted in the backyard. Gong Sunyan felt shocked but happy. She was about to speak when the dragon Qilin suddenly roared, his entire body bursting into flames and burning those girls to ashes. You must not open your mouth no matter what, the dragon Qilin said solemnly. Gong Sunyan nodded repeatedly, like a chick pecking at grains of rice. The dragon Qilin watched his surroundings alertly. Mother Earth will surely come up with some more tricks and won't give up so easily. As long as you don't speak, Mother Earth won't be able to break the seal and sacrificial altar of the Grand Emperor and enter your body to take it over. At that moment, the time that Qin Mu and Mother Earth had agreed upon had arrived. Qin Mu opened his altar and performed his spell to gather souls for her. There were waves of cold wind in that deserted area. The black sand tumbled and swarmed forward. Qin Mu opened the heavenly door of heaven and earth, and inherited the power of Heaven Duke and Earth Count. His Tao voice rumbled as his Tao rhythm trembled. Together with his supreme Dharma, he began reconstructing Mother Earth's 3 souls. The ground shook ceaselessly as the roots of Mother Earth burrowed underneath. She had arrived, waiting for her souls to be recovered. After a long time, Qin Mu had finally reconstructed Mother Earth's 3 souls of Heaven Soul, Earth Soul and God Soul, and he was drenched all over. The 3 souls of Mother Earth stood on the sacrificial altar as Qin Mu said solemnly, Mother Earth, I have delivered on my promise. We don't owe each other anything now. Mother Earth's soul slowly sank into the ground, and she was laughing as she said, Well said. You're indeed the great wizard. Now that I have been brought back to life, I'll put in a few good words for you in front of the other ancient gods. Qin Mu snorted as he flicked his sleeves and said, Now that your souls are complete, be off quickly. Mother Earth chuckled. This is just bringing my souls back to life. I don't have my corporeal body yet. Great wizard, your eternal peace lacks the protection of a powerful ancient god. Let me help you with that. After she finished speaking, her 3 souls disappeared. Under the primordial tree of the capital city, Gong Sunyan maintained her silence. Suddenly, the souls of Mother Earth appeared in front of her with a warm smile and gently stroked her face, saying softly, Poor child, my daughter, Mother has come to see you. Gong Sunyan's heart melted as she chokingly said, Mother. Mother Earth laughed heartily as the dragon Qilin bellowed in rage and charged towards her. Instantly, he was crushed by boundless pressure, causing him to be flattened on the ground while the earth sank steadily. Yennefer turned into a dragon sparrow and swooped down from the sky with her wings spread wide. Mother Earth reached out with a finger, and countless roots burrowed out of the ground, binding Yennefer firmly. At the crown of the primordial tree, the Grand Emperor's seal gave off a bright brilliance, forming an invisible barrier with the Grand Emperor's sacrificial altar buried at the roots. However, in the next moment, the seal and the altar came flying out of the tree. Mother Earth's figure suddenly scattered as she burrowed into Gong Sun Yan's body. Gong Sun Yan raised her head and smiled. Great wizard, no matter how careful you are, you're still unable to guard against me. This body still inevitably ended up in my hands. Primordial liquid, come to me. The ground shook, and a thick root burrowed out of the ground, a large flower sprouting from it. The inside of the flower was full of primordial liquid. It drooped over and poured the liquid onto Eternal Peace's primordial tree. She succeeded in stealing the body and thus poured all of her treasured primordial liquid onto her new body, intending to use the primordial liquid to raise the power of her new body, so that she could reach her peak condition as soon as possible. The roots of Mother Earth and the primordial tree of Eternal Peace absorbed the primordial liquid. The roots linked up together and grew, becoming more and more entangled. The roots of Eternal Peace's primordial tree merged with the roots of Mother Earth. The thick roots burst from the ground in all directions, passing through countless divine mountains, rivers, streams, and even penetrating deep into the lava beneath the earth. Soon Eternal Peace was covered with the roots of the primordial tree. The roots continued to extend in all directions, spreading across the primordial realm, drawing nutrients from the land. Gong Sun Yan's power was getting stronger and stronger. If one were to use realms to measure her, her cultivation would reach the Jade Capital realm in a few breaths, then numinous sky, charging straight towards Emperor's throne with terrifying speed. Soon, her abilities reached the Emperor's throne realm, and it was still increasing continuously, becoming unimaginably powerful. Celestial Venerable Mu, the invincible great wizard, ultimately, you haven't placed yourself in the correct seat. Gong Sun Yan laughed cheerfully as her voice traveled all over Eternal Peace, reaching the deserted area where Qin Mu summoned the souls. You're just a tool that keeps us ancient gods immortal. A dog we raised. Instead of doing a good job being a dog, you tend to think of yourself as our partner, even showing me your arrogance. You have to remember. Her voice turned extremely icy. You aren't fit enough. Thick clouds of fog surged from the outside towards the bottom of the primordial tree. Qin Mu's voice traveled from the fog, saying leisurely, Mother Earth, do you think I only used the simple method of sealing Gong Sun Yan's corporeal body to deal with you? Gong Sun Yan was slightly stunned. The fog followed Qin Mu as he walked over. Soon everywhere was covered by it. Qin Mu stood in the fog in front of her and plainly said, Mother Earth, I already warned you not to make a move on Gong Sun Yan, yet you didn't take my advice to heart and still went ahead. Working with you ancient gods has caused me a great deal of frustration. It looks like I have to show off my might. Gong Sun Yan laughed coldly. You're just a dog kept by us, the ancient gods, and your only use is to revive us. Do you really think that you're Celestial Venerable Mu? You're just a lucky little brat who borrowed Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art to transmigrate to the past. Qin Mu raised his hand towards her and spread his 5 fingers, then whispered softly, Bang! Although his voice was gentle, it felt like an earth-shaking thunderclap when it reached the ears of Mother Earth. With a thunderous boom, her god soul exploded, turning into countless grains of black soul sand and pouring out from Gong Sun Yan's ears, mouth, and nose. Her other 2 souls were terrified. Her god soul had clearly been revived. She had checked it and was sure it hadn't been tampered with by Qin Mu. However, at that moment, she was unable to feel her god soul at all. I'm Celestial Venerable Mu, who established the path through divine arts. The fog got heavier as Qin Mu's voice traveled from the fog, saying indifferently, You have never accepted this, thinking that anyone who returned to the ancient times could become Celestial Venerable Mu. However, from the ancient times until now, there has only been one Celestial Venerable Mu. That's me, and it's only me. I can let you live, and I can also kill you. Gong Sun Yan's pupils contracted. The roots were silently probing in the fog, searching for traces of Qin Mu. At the same time, the primordial tree was also gently stretching its branches into the mist. I need to show off my might. However, not just to you but to every ancient god. Gong Sun Yan's eyes lit up when Qin Mu's voice traveled over, and she sent countless roots and branches in his direction. At that moment, Mother Earth's heaven soul instantly disintegrated, turning into black soul sand that scattered all over the place. Mother Earth's mournful scream came from the mouth of Gong Sun Yan, sounding extremely shrill. It was filled with panic and the fear of death. It was her first time experiencing such a frightening thing. It was clear that her current strength surpassed Qin Mu's by several folds, and it wouldn't take much effort to crush him to death. However, her life and death were in Qin Mu's hands. She had survived countless calamities from the ancient primordial era to the present. She had survived the fierce battles of the ancient primordial era. At the end of the High Emperor era, she had survived even after getting chopped by Celestial Venerable Ling and other members of the Heaven Alliance. Even when Celestial Venerable Hao personally attacked her, she was able to escape and live. However, right now she felt as though she was very close to her own death. She didn't even understand what tricks Qin Mu pulled. I considered myself an equal when I joined forces with the ancient gods, but you don't consider me as much of an ally. Qin Mu's tone was indifferent. He then said sorrowfully, "It's fine to take advantage of me, but you even began to attack the people around me. Mother Earth, I'm unable to tolerate your impudence. Today, I'll use your death to declare to all ancient gods that I'm an ally, not their animal." He was about to completely destroy the earth soul of Mother Earth when suddenly, there was a surge of darkness in the fog. At the same time, a bright brilliance appeared across the sky, shining from over the horizon. It even penetrated the star atlas covering the primordial realm, as it shone towards the capital city of eternal peace. Qin Mu's heart shuddered slightly, and he stopped what he was doing. Darkness swirled beneath the ground while flames flashed. A magma earth count appeared, swirling as it slowly rose. The light in the sky also converged, turning into an old man with a white beard and brows who descended from the sky. He arrived at Eternal Peace's capital city and entered Qin Mu's residence. Qin Mu bowed and said, "Dao Brother Earth Count, Dao Brother Heaven Duke." Magma Earth Count and the clone of Heaven Duke hurriedly returned the courtesy.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
Heaven Duke laughed. "We came here when we realized you were using our power to resurrect Mother Earth, and started observing what was happening. We didn't expect Mother Earth to be so muddle-headed, provoking Celestial Venerable Mu. Mother Earth is a majestic life-form that has existed since the ancient primordial era, safeguarding the primordial realm and sheltering the sentient beings, which numbered over 10 billion. She doesn't deserve to die," Magma Earth Count said. "The celestial heavens are so powerful that even Heaven Duke and I can't protect ourselves. If you kill Mother Earth, wouldn't you lose a like-minded Dao friend?" Qin Mu shook his head and said, "Like-minded? I wouldn't dare to presume. She has taken advantage of me too many times. Is that how you treat an ally? Didn't both Dao friends hear that she said that I'm a dog raised by the ancient gods?" Magma Earth Count and Heaven Duke looked at each other. Heaven Duke then laughed. "Mother Earth is an unreasonable fellow. Don't bother yourself with her. She doesn't think before she speaks. Now she knows that she was in the wrong. Dao friend, I would like to request that you give her a path of survival." Qin Mu dispelled the fog. His expression softened as he reluctantly said, "Both Dao brothers have taken good care of me. I can be referred to as the invincible great wizard because I borrowed your powers. Therefore, I won't ignore the guidance of my Dao brothers. Mother Earth, I'll spare you today. Now, quickly get out of Gong Sun Yan's corporeal body." Gong Sun Yan revealed a look of resentment and shouted, "My roots have already been fused with this primordial tree and can't be separated. Where can I go after leaving this body?" Qin Mu took out the core of the primordial tree and threw it on the ground. He said plainly, "I'll lend you this stick for you to reside in." Gong Sun Yan gritted her teeth in anger. Heaven Duke gave a cough, and Mother Earth's earth soul involuntarily flew from Gong Sun Yan's body into the core of the primordial tree. Her voice traveled from the core of the primordial tree, speaking hoarsely. "I'm only left with my earth soul, and this core is so weak and tiny. How do I handle the 10 celestial venerables in the future?" Qin Mu tossed her a bottle of primordial liquid and laughed coldly. After resurrecting you, I even lost my original capital. You used a bottle of primordial liquid and the core of the primordial tree to beg me to resurrect you. Now I have returned them to you. You have reaped a good deal." Mother Earth was enraged. She had suffered a huge loss this time. The roots of the primordial tree were the foundation of her life. Now they had become Gong Sun Yan's roots with the primordial liquid applied to them. And that little brat actually said that she had reaped a good deal. Gong Sun Yan woke up and shook her head. She was shocked but delighted when she realized she still had her body. When she saw Heaven Duke and Earth Count, she became timid and was afraid to speak. Qin Mu stepped forward and took her hand. He then smiled. "Earth Count, Heaven Duke, let me introduce you to the new Mother Earth, Gong Sun Yan." Earth Count and Heaven Duke bowed and said, "Greetings, Dao friend Gong Sun." Gong Sun Yan was at a loss and felt uncomfortable.
Qin Mu laughed.
"Sister Yan, won't you return the courtesy?" Gong Sun Yan could only bow. Heaven Duke laughed. "The primordial realm and Xuandu are like one family. Dao friend Gong Sun, you must come to Xuandu often," promoting the relationship between these two realms. Gong Sun Yan didn't know what to say and could only nod. She didn't understand the weight of Heaven Duke's words, but Mother Earth was incensed. What Heaven Duke did was recognize Gong Sun Yan as the new Mother Earth. She would rule the primordial realm in the future and be his equal. Hence, he referred to her as a Dao friend and invited her to make a trip to Xuandu. This undoubtedly cast Mother Earth aside and covertly deprived her, the rightful ruler of the primordial realm, of her authority. But she also knew that the situation was beyond her power. Gong Sun Yan had the roots of the primordial tree. Together with so much primordial liquid watered upon her, her future achievements would be limitless. Gong Sun Yan wasn't an ancient god and didn't have their many restraints. With the reform of eternal peace, her achievements wouldn't necessarily be inferior to Mother Earth. Hence, she was acknowledged by Heaven Duke. Moreover, Mother Earth only had the core of the primordial tree and a bottle of primordial liquid. Far from being able to challenge Gong Sun Yan for the right to rule the primordial realm, it could be said that her lifetime achievement was to have Gong Sun Yan. Qin Mu was too hard-hearted. His purpose wasn't only to get rid of Mother Earth. He also wanted to establish a new Mother Earth. If Heaven Duke and Earth Count hadn't appeared, there was no reason to keep Mother Earth alive since eternal peace already had a new Mother Earth. Heaven Duke smiled. "Celestial Venerable Mu, can you remove the tampering on Mother Earth's Earth Soul? How difficult is this?" Qin Mu said earnestly, "Since this is the wish of both Dao brothers, I'll naturally accede to it." His consciousness fluctuated, and Mother Earth felt countless little worms burrowing within her Earth Soul as incomparably intricate runes flew out one after another. Earth Count watched the extremely tiny runes fly towards Qin Mu. They disintegrated as they traveled through the air, turning into vital qi and consciousness that returned to his body. He asked, "What divine art did Celestial Venerable Mu use?" "Very easy," Qin Mu modestly said. "I simply used microscopic carving to carve my runes on every grain of black soul sand. The runes were placed on the altar that I used to summon the souls for Mother Earth. When the souls were summoned, those runes imprinted themselves on every grain of black soul sand as they passed through the altar." Although he made it sound easy, it was obvious that the task was pretty difficult. The black soul sand was considered the finest particle. Carving and imprinting runes on each grain of black soul sand was virtually an impossible task. The reform of eternal peace had begun to involve microscopic carving and microscopic imprinting. No other race in the thousands of heavens and worlds had ever set foot upon this field. In addition to the microscopic carving on the black soul sand, I also worried that I wouldn't be able to disintegrate the souls of Mother Earth instantly. Hence, I used Celestial Venerable Ling's divine art, which is also very simple. Qin Mu had a sincere gaze as he said, "It's just a simple unchanging divine art. On the altar, before I reconstructed Mother Earth's 3 souls, I had already performed the unchanging divine art on her 3 souls when they were in black soul sand form. This provided me another layer of guarantee. Either way, I can kill Mother Earth easily." Earth Count and Heaven Duke were quiet. Heaven Duke coughed and reached out to grab the core of the primordial tree. He then smiled. "Mother Earth, you're weak now, and it's dangerous for you to remain in the primordial realm. Why don't you go to Xuandu to recuperate first?" I have a heavenly pool in Xuandu, which will allow you to recover your corporeal body. Although your body won't reach its full potential, it will by no means be insignificant. Mother Earth said, I have troubled Tao brother greatly. Heaven Duke bowed at Qinmu and left with Mother Earth. Qinmu returned the bow and watched as they rose up into the sky. Magma Earth Count looked at Qinmu quietly. After some time he said, You aren't that simple and pure Qinmu from back then.
Qinmu laughed.
Does Earth Count not wish for me to grow up? Magma Earth Count shook his head and said, Naturally, I wish for you to grow up. Except I remember when Heaven Duke and I were in your eyes. We are unable to return to that time.
Qinmu sighed ruefully.
It's indeed impossible to return to that. Magma Earth Count bowed and sank into the ground. Qinmu maintained his bow until Earth Count completely disappeared. The dragon Qilin and Yenner hurried over. Qinmu wiped off the sweat on the back of his neck and said emotionally, When sitting at the same table as equals with existences like Heaven Duke and Earth Count, I'm still a little fearful. Yenner quietly went behind him and checked. Sure enough, there were many goosebumps on Qinmu's neck. He was just pretending to be calm earlier. Gong Sun Yen was at a loss and still a little overwhelmed. When she saw that Qinmu was about to leave, she quickly grabbed his sleeve. She was about to cry, her voice full of fear as she begged, Young master, don't go, I'm scared and confused. Mother Earth is my mother, yet she wanted to take my body. Not just that, Heaven Duke and Earth Count called me a Tao friend and talked about the primordial realm in Xuandu. She bit her lip and was so drenched in tears that she looked like a beautiful pear blossom that had bathed in the rain. I just want to stay here and plant trees and invite phoenixes over to make nests. If you run out of water, I can water you. I can also fertilize you and help you catch bugs. I have never encountered anything like today. Qinmu patted her on her back, waited for her to finish crying, then smiled. Yenner, don't you understand? You're no longer what you used to be. You're now the new Mother Earth of the primordial realm. What you haven't figured out is that every ancient god is envious of you. Gong Sun Yen raised her head. Her eyes filled with tears that hadn't dried up, looking at him puzzledly.
Qinmu smiled.
Be it Heaven Duke, Earth Count, Mother Earth, the four deities or the other millions of ancient gods, they are bound by their own great Tao and are unable to break through that barrier. Mother Earth wanted to take you over because she wanted your body to break free of the shackles of the ancient gods. You aren't an ancient god, but you have the power of the ancient gods. You can still cultivate and reach a higher realm. How can they not envy you? Gong Sun Yen pinched the corner of his clothes tightly and held on to him. I don't understand, you have to teach me. Let go of me first. I'll ask Granny to come and teach you. Her magnetism divine art and other various divine arts are those that have entered the path. She's the best person to teach you. With her help, you can quickly master your own power. Qinmu struggled twice but was unable to break free. The current Gong Sun Yen was definitely an adult half-god, possessing the battle power of a top-tier emperor's throne practitioner. Only her cultivation realm was lacking. Her realm was still very low. At present, she had only cultivated the true god realm, as she wasn't interested in cultivation. The reason she was so powerful was her bloodline, as well as the roots of Mother Earth and her treasured primordial liquid. When his clothes were being held onto by such a terrifying existence, Qinmu was unable to escape.
Qinmu laughed.
After a while, I think the celestial heavens will come to know of your existence and should summon you in the name of the ancient celestial emperor, granting you an official post such as Mother Earth of Eternal Peace. I'll let the emperor guide you on the celestial heavens etiquette. Let go of me first. Don't pull my pants. Gong Sun Yen finally let go of Qinmu, who felt relieved and immediately went to the capital to see Ling Yuxiu about this. Ling Yuxiu smiled and said, I paid my respects to the celestial venerables at the celestial heavens many times, so I know a lot about the formalities there. I'll guide Yenner so that she won't make a fool of herself. Relax. She went to see Gong Sun Yen with Qinmu, asking along the way, if Yenner is conferred the title of Mother Earth as expected, what rank will she be? She will be the biggest official of the primordial realm, on the level of the four deities, Black Deity and White Deity. However, she'll have less power. Qinmu continued. The 10 celestial venerables might give her half of the primordial realm for her to go against celestial venerable Shao. Ling Yuxiu shuddered. Eternal Peace was a small country not worthy of concern for the celestial heavens. She was a mere small emperor of some country. If she had no money or use, the celestial venerables wouldn't even care about her. Gong Sun Yen would have a higher authority after being conferred with her new title. She would be equal to the 4 deities. And if Gong Sun Yen really was pushed to go against celestial venerable Xiao like Qin Mu said would happen, wouldn't Gong Sun Yen be in trouble? In her heart, Gong Sun Yen was a naive and innocent girl. How could she be the opponent of the cunning celestial venerable Xiao? Be it in power or wisdom, Gong Sun Yen paled greatly in comparison to celestial venerable Xiao. Qin Mu looked at her and understood her concerns. He smiled and said, "Celestial venerable Xiao will accept it no matter how much he dislikes it. After all, he needs me. Thus he won't strike against Gong Sun Yen." Ling Yuxiu felt relieved and walked with him. Suddenly she said, "Recently, people in the court keep asking me to marry." She stopped and vaguely said, "Imperial Preceptor, they say that I must have offspring as the son of heaven. Thus they keep on repeating that." Qin Mu stopped, looked at her and asked, "What did you reply, Emperor?" "I told them that the Imperial Preceptor hasn't formed a family to work hard for the nation. Can my understanding be worse than the Imperial Preceptor?" Ling Yuxiu smiled and continued, "And then they shut up. However, every once in a while a statesman will bring it up. Thus I'd like to ask you, when are you getting married? Once you're married, I'll marry too." Qin Mu looked at her quietly. After a while he said, "Who will you let me marry?" "Gong Sun Yen Si Yunxiang, High Emperor Sword God. Even Yen Jingjing," Ling Yuxiu said with a complex expression. "I'll let you marry anyone you want. I don't want to look at you running around alone. After you get married, I'll be more relieved." Qin Mu shook his head and said, "I don't want to marry anyone. I have no time now. Eternal Peace's reform hasn't succeeded, and I have no energy for such things." "You're trying to delay me," Ling Yuxiu furiously said. "Herder of cows. I shouldn't have met you then." All around people looked at them. Ling Yuxiu adjusted herself and continued walking as she said begrudgingly, "How can I marry if you don't? Am I your little mother cow to be chained forever? I met you in my best years, yet we're both wasted now." Qin Mu caught up to her and said, "Can you throw away your throne? Can I throw away my position as the Imperial Preceptor? If we can't, we have to be like this." Ling Yuxiu glanced at him and said, "If we win in the future and neither of us is married," Qin Mu said calmly, "by then I won't be the Imperial Preceptor." Ling Yuxiu said with red eyes, "I won't be the Emperor either." "I'll marry you," Qin Mu said. "Yep," Ling Yuxiu said while turning away. Xuandu. Mother Earth sat in the primordial tree's core, while Heaven Duke gently dipped it in the heavenly pool. The pool was extraordinary. Although it wasn't like the primordial liquid, it was the starlight chain of thousands of galaxies. One could see the light from afar. The primordial tree core absorbed the star water of the heavenly pool. It slowly sprouted and leaves slowly appeared. After a while, a large tree appeared in the pool. After a couple of days, Mother Earth walked out of the tree naked. Heaven Duke saw it and plucked down clouds to forge clothes for her. Mother Earth smiled and said, "Heaven Duke, I didn't know you were such a thoughtful person." Heaven Duke smiled and said, "Mother Earth, don't joke around. I have no soil here, and I can only let you absorb the water. I can't let you absorb the soil power, which is bad for your growth." Mother Earth said, "There is a lot of soil in the ancestral court for me to take. Don't you dare touch it." Heaven Duke was furious. After a while he relaxed and said, "Never touch the ancestral court. There should be some growth soil with West deity. I'll sacrifice some of my face to beg for some for you." Mother Earth sat beside the pool and looked up at the vast Heaven Duke. She asked, "Tao brother, are you really going to tolerate celestial venerable Mu like this? If he can kill me today, he can kill you and Earth Count in the future. We are leaders of ancient gods. Are you not saddened?" Heaven Duke's white eyebrows fluttered. They were long star belts. He leisurely said, "Mother Earth, you aren't born from Tao but from the spirit energy of heaven and earth. You know not what I think. You who has the desire to obtain power and accomplishments, have been corrupted for far too long from rooting the primordial realm. Ancient gods like us should stay away from worldly affairs and follow the great Tao." "Hypocrite." Mother Earth coldly laughed. Stay away from worldly affairs and follow the great Tao? If you were really like that, why did you, Earth Count Heavenly Een, and the ladies of the ruins of N strike out against the masters of creation then? Heaven Duke's gaze fell on her. His voice was far and loud as he said, "The wars between the masters of creation endangered the universe. They controlled us to fight for them. We weren't ourselves when under their control. If their wars continued, the ancestral court would have been destroyed, and the universe would have collapsed and stopped existing. I heard the voice from my Tao then telling me to eliminate the masters of creation. Mother Earth, have you heard it before?" Mother Earth was stunned as she shook her head and said, "No." Heaven Duke said, "I heard it. I felt my great Tao pushing me to eliminate the masters of creation and stop their destruction. I asked Earth Count, and he heard Yudu asking him to do so too. You aren't an ancient god of Tao, so you're naturally limited. Perhaps this is why you never heard its call." Mother Earth coldly smiled and said, "You're making things up to distract me. My question was, are you going to let Celestial Venerable Mu act like this? He's been more and more unrestrained." Heaven Duke gently smiled and said, "Mother Earth, you still fail to understand. We need him to fight the 10 Celestial Venerables with us. Since we are allies, why don't we respect him like one? Don't forget how without him, no one can revive you." "You." Heaven Duke smiled and said, "You see only the danger, not the opportunity. You see the 10 Celestial Venerables exterminating us, but fail to see how this is our chance to get out of our great Tao restraints." Mother Earth laughed out of anger as she angrily said, "You intend to give up your noble ancient god body to become a normal person?" Heaven Duke rebutted, "Who's nobler and who's lowlier under the Heaven Tao? Mother Earth, I didn't save you just to hear you rant. I need your power for something. After that, you owe me nothing." Mother Earth gave a cold humph. "What? Cleaning Schwandu?" Surprisingly, a shred of murderous intent came from his voice. Mother Earth was shocked as she asked, "You plan to use me to get rid of the power that the celestial heavens have in Schwandu? So, Mother Earth, are you doing this or not?" Heaven Duke asked. Mother Earth clenched her teeth and said, "If I do, there will be no place for me in Schwandu, for Ancestral God King will kill me and chase me. You only saved me so you can use me to eliminate the celestial heavens forces in Schwandu." Heaven Duke looked at her and said, "After that, I'll lend you West Deity's growth soil." With great murderous intent, Mother Earth shouted, "Fine, I'll do it." Qin Mu and Ling Yuxiu separated again. They went back to the shipyard, where village chief, apothecary, Granny C, cripple, old Ma, and Deaf had arrived. Butcher contacted them via various teleportation formations. Now that eternal peace was rich, all sorts of materials were shipped from the heavens to be forged into divine weapons and spirit pills. There were more than enough to support the teleportation doors of various cities. Disabled elderly village gathered together, causing a lot of commotion. Mute had already sorted and prepared the materials to create the divine weapons in accordance to everyone's divine arts. The divine weapons eternal peace forged for the celestial heavens were all standardized. The process in the shipyards was as smooth as flowing water. Every shipyard was in charge of 1 or 2 procedures. As Eternal Peace's strongest heavenly workers and formation experts, it was a big deal that Mute and Blind were personally forging the weapons. Village Chief wanted a sword with a scabbard instead of a sword pellet. Butcher wanted 2 divine knives. Granny C wanted a Tao wheel that could carry her own great Tao divine arts. Old Ma wanted a monk staff. As for Cripple, he wanted a pair of gloves and boots. Deaf wanted an inkstone. Apothecary wanted a cauldron to forge pills in. Blind wanted to refine his divine spear Long Tua, while Mute wanted a new furnace and hammer. Qin Mu observed everything from the side. While Village Chief's sword was made, Village Chief unleashed his own sword Tao divine art, causing sword runes to fly everywhere. Meanwhile, Blind used formations to stabilize the divine arts, and turn them into microscopic runes to be hammered by Mute's hammer into the sword. Qin Mu examined the ancestral quartz divine gold. Every particle of it had the smallest sword Tao runes imprinted on it, which amazed him. Such a path of forging contained microscopic algebra, microscopic sculpture, microscopic formation, microscopic runes, and microscopic forging. Thus, only the best of heavenly workers and formation masters could do it. Even beings like Village Chief would need to fuse a lot of vital chi, energy, consciousness, spirit, and essence into the divine weapon to forge such a divine weapon. It was only so that one could unleash the maximum potential of their divine weapon. During the forging, village chief ran out of vital chi, energy, and consciousness multiple times. Thus he had to rest to continue. Blind said, "If we stop and continue like this, the blade won't be able to be finished at once, affecting its power." Qin got the dragon qilin to get the bottle of Flask World. He distributed some primordial liquid for village chief's swift recovery. Mute saw the liquid and abruptly said, "Muir, get more water for refining." Qin was shocked. He didn't want to, but he still allowed the dragon qilin to hand more of it to Mute so he could refine the blade. Village chief's sword was the most delicate art, and no mistakes were allowed. Its power would even exceed that of village chief. The more Qin observed, the more he learned. He pioneered microscopic algebra, but microscopic formations, sculpting, imprinting, forging, and runes were pioneered by Eternal Peace. Then the leaders of Eternal Peace's reform saw the future in microscopic algebra, so they funded its research fanatically. Today many accomplishments were made. It took a dozen days and a lot of primordial liquid for village chief's sword, but it was finally done. When it was done, all of the divine weapons in the shipyards on the banks of the river reverberated at the same time. When village chief grabbed it, the reverberation grew more intense. He steadied himself to take the sword out when Blind stopped him, saying, "The king of weapons is definitely more powerful than you. It'll definitely try to establish that in the first unsheathing. Pull it out outside somewhere far away. The shipyards can't withstand its power." Village chief walked out of the shipyard, and the masses followed to witness it. Village chief's unsheathing was a testament to the success of their efforts and Eternal Peace's reform over the past 10 years. Village chief was about to do it when Blind frowned and said, "Further." Village chief leaped into the air away from the shipyards before saying, "How about here?" Mute shouted loudly, "Even further." Village chief had no choice but to climb. After a bit he shouted, "How about here?" Mute checked the reverberations from the shipyard's divine weapons before shouting back, "Even further." Village chief climbed until the naked eye could no longer observe him. His voice sounded out from afar. "What about now? What is it, Long Tua?" Blind asked his divine spear. The black dragon divine spear on his waist vibrated and said, "I feel its sword light piercing me even when it's not unsheathed. If it is, it'll establish its power and suppress all sharp things around it. I'll surely be cut." Blind shouted, "Even further." Village chief flew to the sky, higher than even the primordial tree in Eternal Peace's capital. He could only see the capital and the primordial tree when he looked down. The surrounding dragon vein became minuscule too. He looked up. If he climbed higher, he would be near the star picture. Thus, he hurriedly inquired with his consciousness, "What about now?" After a while, Qin consciousness arrived. "Village chief, Grandpa Blind wants you to go higher." Village chief furiously said, "I'll be in outer space if I go any higher. Can't be that strong. There's no way it can cut the shipyard's divine weapons from so far away." He pulled his blade and it was unsheathed. Qin consciousness around him instantly melted. All he could see was dazzling sword light before his consciousness was broken. At the same time, the divine weapons in the shipyards nearby vibrated and reverberated. Their countless runes lit up instantly, for the weapons felt threatened. Their powers were activated as dazzling divine lights flooded out of each divine weapon. In the next moment, the people outside the shipyards heard breaking sounds come from each shipyard. They immediately headed back. Before they entered, a recently forged sword pellet fell apart. It had 360 divine swords within, which all broke, ruining everything. In the shipyards, the light coming from the divine weapons dimmed. Breaking sounds came next, causing the faces of everyone in the shipyards to turn dark. "Village chief, this old man can't sit around. It's as if he's a child." Butcher was furious as sounds of reverberations came from his divine knives. He quickly said, "The power of that sword is coming for our divine weapons." Blind immediately used his vital chi and divine spear. His spear made a cry of sorrow as sword marks appeared on its dragon head and body. In the shipyards, more divine weapons broke. The light given off by them was soon extinguished. Broken divine weapons covered the area. The heavenly workers in the factory stood there dumbfounded. Broken divine weapons were weapons like knives, swords, and spears. Other divine weapons like shields and hammers were intact. After a while, everything settled down. The shipyards were in a mess. Suddenly, village chief's voice came from the outside. What a good sword! I feel myself becoming younger with it. Everyone was furious inside the shipyards. The masses flooded out. Blind said with a cheeky smile, Village chief, there are still some flaws in the sword. Bring it to me, and I'll show you. Everyone understood him except for village chief. He gave him his sword and its sheath. Blind received the sword and hollered, Go! Butcher suddenly hugged village chief while Granny C punched him. Crippled, deaf, mute, blind, and the others swarmed him to punch and kick him. Qin Mu and Apothecary also snuck 2 kicks in to unleash their anger. It wasn't until village chief begged for mercy that the masses stopped to throw him aside. Mute said, Let's go and forge other treasures. Village chief climbed up and furiously asked, Apothecary, did you kick me just now? No. Apothecary said with sincerity on his face, We're best friends and we drank tea in the village. Why would I kick you? I'd never do that. I was even pulling them so they would stop. However, Moore kicked you. Qin Mu leaped into the air to escape. Village chief coldly laughed and pulled his blade. A sword light flashed as Qin Mu fell from the sky and into the courtyard. Village chief put his sword back and praised, What a good sword. I'll call you evil cutter, for you will be cutting bad hypocrites. Let's go. We shall continue to forge treasures. Qin Mu climbed up and limped into the shipyard, so he could observe them forging in order to learn its marvels. After a dozen more days, Mute and Blind forged Granny C's treasure Dao wheel together. Granny C wanted to test its power, and everyone was alarmed by that. Qin Mu pointed his finger immediately, and used his teleportation divine art to send her somewhere else. Moore, I'll beat you to death when I get back. Granny C's voice came from the aftermath of the teleportation divine art with a lot of echoes. The masses felt relieved enough to continue forging, but Qin Mu was unnerved and said, Village chief old ma, when Granny returns, you two ought to say some good things for me. It's fine, it's fine. Cripple patted and consoled him. You'll be fine. Qin Mu didn't feel relieved though, feeling that the elders of disabled elderly village seemed to harbor some bad intentions. It turned out that when Granny C came back from testing her treasure and beat Qin Mu up on the ground, no one spoke up for him. Instead, they drank tea and engaged in small talk. It was only when Granny C got tired that the masses dispersed to continue forging divine weapons. Qin Mu climbed up with his face all swollen. He looked at the dragon Qilin. He was hiding in a corner pretending to sleep. Yinner morphed into a little green sparrow and was sleeping on his head. You two are useless. I'll serve you two as food together during the Lunar New Year. Qin Mu said maliciously. The little green sparrow shuddered. So the dragon Qilin's tail was lifted to put her into his embrace. He lightly patted her head to get her to sleep. In the shipyard, Qin Mu went to Granny C's side and whispered Gong Sun Yan's affairs to her. Please guide her, Granny. Granny C smiled and said, I know she's silly and that she dislikes cultivation. What realm is she at now? The true God realm. Qin Mu hesitated before continuing. But her power is at the top of the Emperor's throne realm. She has great magic power, and is likely number 1 in the list of strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne. Granny C was spooked as she said, Her cultivation is at the Emperor's throne level when she's at the true God realm? There are 5 realms in between. Qin Mu replied, She's a half-god, the daughter of Mother Earth. Realms were only opened by the Dragon Han's 9 celestial venerables. They have very little to do with power. Granny C felt troubled as she murmured, It'll likely be hard to teach her to control her own power. She's in the true God realm, but she has power belonging to the top of the Emperor's throne realm. This is difficult. She rose up and left hastily. Qin Mu continued to analyze Blind and Mute's formation and forging paths until they forged Apothecary's cauldron. By then, he had basically mastered the results of their many years of cultivation. You still have a lot to learn about forging, Mute advised him, saying, You're at the limit in terms of forging accuracy. However, you still lack a lot in terms of the forging spirit. Firstly, you have to understand why we found objects and work. Mute lifted his hammer as the flames in the furnace filled the air, as if there were thousands of suns within. He solemnly said, "We didn't have the powers of ancient gods. We didn't have the ways of creation nor the wonders of it. However, we had tools, brains, perseverance, passion, and dreams. Heavenly works and founding objects are dependent on our hands. We build our own dreams and create powerful machines to make us de facto masters of creation." Qin Mu carefully comprehended, and after a while he smiled. He then quickly picked a treasure from the ancestral court to forge his own divine weapon. Blind came forward, looked at him working and asked, "Mute, microscopic forging requires at least 3 people. Can he do it alone?" "Of course he can." Mute continued to help Butcher forge his knives as he said, "He was the one who told us about microscopic forging and consciousness forging 5 years ago. Now he's here to rely on us. If he doesn't learn it, he might as well die in a pit." Blind nodded. "This fellow's cultivation is already above us. However, he still pales in comparison when put up against our specialties. This fellow acts so righteously when he relies on us." Mute said, "Why not let him try on his own and grind on his own? If we teach him, he'll never be at our level. However, we have to work hard to prevent ourselves from having nothing to teach him." Blind said with a lot of intensity, "The B** comes back to visit us every few years to learn things. If we had nothing to teach him, he would probably abandon us." Qin Mu sensed the characteristics of the treasures he stole from Clear Sun Hall. In Mute's terms, every material had its own attributes and even characteristics. It was only when one understood them that they could mix them together to elevate the toughness, strength, and healing of their divine weapon greatly. Qin Mu was doing that right now. A successful blacksmith must first have a soft heart. Mute may have looked like a rough old man, but his heart was the softest in disabled elderly village. That was why he was the one most susceptible to lies. Thus he refused to open his heart. Instead, he would much rather be mute. Qin Mu found many heavenly workers of the White Tiger God race for him, yet Mute liked none of them despite all of them being beautiful ladies. This was because the experiences in the early years of his life impacted him too much. Qin Mu carefully sensed them. In his eyes, the treasures became different beauties. Some were hot like fire while some were gentle like water. Some were as cold as an icy mountain, while some were as elusive as clouds. No wonder Grandpa Mute likes none of them. In his eyes, these materials are probably unrivaled beauties. Once he understood their different attributes, he began to mix them. This beautiful jade becomes longer when you add a part of it, and it becomes shorter when you cut a part of it. Thus, it should be matched with the lady that is like floating clouds and flowing sand. Add to that some powder. It was like Qin Mu was dolling up a beautiful girl as he worked, whispering, "With this pearl, the skin will be as fair as snow. This silk can be used to make the waist belt. A girdle is worth as much as 1,000 gold bars." After he was done, he became excited and utilized the heavenly fire divine art to melt the nicely decorated beauty. Qin Mu opened his third eye and used the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique. Using vital qi and consciousness as hammers, he forged his own divine weapon. Mute and Blind looked at him. They said they weren't worried, but they were worried that Qin Mu might waste the treasures. Qin Mu's essence and spirit grew stronger as he indulged in forging. The Tao rhythmic vibrations that came from him resembled that of comprehension of Tao more than forging. Surprisingly, Blind and Mute saw the scene and instantly felt relaxed. They looked at one another and nodded. As expected, Qin Mu used his comprehension in his forging. Not only did he learn the knowledge imparted by the two of them during forging, but he also mastered using it. Not only that, but Qin Mu also entered a mysterious state where his comprehension of himself and Tao, his own spirit, and even his own Tao heart were fused into forging. When he was forging, halos appeared around him, followed by ancient god apparitions. The halos circled the ancient gods, symbolizing the great Tao of the prehistoric universe. Loud Tao voices came. His comprehension, Tao heart, perseverance, and hard work were all forged into his divine weapon via his hammering. He made his great Tao runes and divine arts microscopic before imprinting them on every microscopic particle of his divine weapon via his large hammer. He was very serious about it. Every time his vital qi and consciousness were depleted, he drank a mouthful of primordial liquid. When his divine weapon was too scorching, he would douse water on it, disregarding the cost. Blind and Mute were perplexed by how Qin Mu was still forging despite them finishing Butcher's divine knives already. They didn't think much about it though, considering Qin Mu's learning was complex, which rendered his microscopic forging tedious. They rested for a while before turning on their furnace again to help Cripple forge his boots and gloves. It was even more tedious to forge Cripple's treasures than Butcher's knives. Cripple's techniques were unique. His treasures had to be able to pass through all sorts of seals and restrictions with him and be something that could elevate his thieving techniques. It was a huge challenge to Mute and Blind. When they finished Cripple's treasures, at least 20 days had passed. They gave a sigh of relief, but when they looked back, they saw that Qin Mu was still forging his divine weapon. However, one could see that Qin Mu was forging a sword. A normal one with no visible uniqueness. Yet Qin Mu had already used the celestial palaces of his own spirit embryo divine treasure to enhance his imprints. The power of Mu's divine weapon will probably be terrifying. They looked at one another with that thought in their hearts. They recognized how Qin Mu's divine weapon merely looked like a sword. In reality, it carried Qin Mu's great Tao and ambitions. It was more than a sword, for it could change forms easily, which made it complex. The abnormalities around Qin Mu gathered, and with the final hammer, the divine sword suddenly broke. Blind and Mute were shocked. They rushed to him and saw the divine sword he had painfully forged for days broken. It became powder since it was made from microscopic forging. Thus, the divine gold and materials became minute particles that were almost impossible to detect. Qin Mu grabbed the ashes and was stunned. Blind examined it, frowned and whispered. Mute, he planned to fuse 15 Emperor's Throne techniques and forge them into the sword. However, the sword couldn't take it. Mute examined the particles on the floor and differentiated the materials before saying, I couldn't have done better than him in mixing materials. However, this sword is forged. Blind was stunned as Mute wiped the ashes and took out a hilt. There was a broken sword on it that was 6 inches long. He smiled and said, It's this sword. Qin Mu originally thought that he had failed, but when he heard Mute, he looked at the sword and saw how it was still sharp and bright. Mute took it and said, Mu, you wanted something too perfect. You wanted to forge a perfect divine sword that could merge with your own great Tao. How could you do everything at once? We try to reduce what we are poor in to make us richer in what we are rich in. When you were forging, you did just that. Qin Mu seemed to understand. You forged it to be too complete when your techniques aren't. Forcing the forging caused the blade to be damaged. Couldn't take it, so it broke. As the saying goes, once you are at the edge of something, you have to return. Mute continued. The right way is to take what you have extra of to make up for what you lack. For you should make up for your broken sword with yourself. This is thus your Tao sword. You don't have to chase perfection. You have to constantly comprehend with this sword and perfect your own techniques and great Tao to finish making up for it. The day you finish will be the day your blade is complete. Qin Mu took the blade and was touched. A sword light came out, and it was clear like water as it shone on his face. Mute said his forging was too complete, which was right. When he was forging it, he wanted a divine weapon that could carry his 15 celestial palaces with his great Tao runes imprinted on it, so that he could imprint his comprehension of Tao on it. 6 of the 15 celestial palaces were still incomplete. The incompleteness of his techniques rendered his blade incomplete as well. Yet, Qin Mu wanted perfection, which shattered the blade. Mute smiled and said, This blade will grow with you. Although it's broken, its power will be extraordinary when it's grown. Qin Mu utilized the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, and the blade morphed into countless microscopic particles. It formed a long knife that was like flowing water. He gently rubbed it, and it became a dragon spear. The blade changed according to his thoughts. However, he had to use his runes to make up for what it was lacking when it morphed into a different one. The parts that were missing were different for every form, so the great Tao runes needed were different too. Qin Mu picked it up. He was still disappointed. Although his incomplete techniques caused the weapon to be damaged, he still wanted to forge a perfect divine weapon. More haste, less speed. People like Grandpa Mute and Village Chief, who only cultivate one celestial palace, are more suited than me at forging divine weapons. I'm attempting to cultivate the great celestial heavens, which makes it harder for me to forge. He calmed himself down as Duqian Devil King's voice came from the outside. Qin Mu walked out, and Dutian Devil King and Yu Zhaoqing requested an audience. 3 heavenly dragons followed them. They bowed and paid their respects too. Dutian Devil King said, "After 5 years, I have conquered the heavenly feather world. I'm here to report on it." Qin Mu laughed and held him up, saying, "It's been tough, brother Dutian." He summoned the dragon Qilin and took the bottle of Flask World, saying, "Your people are still in there. Today I give this heaven to you. Please check, brother." Dutian Devil King suppressed his excitement as Qin Mu took out the remaining primordial liquid. He flicked it up, and the bottle of Flask World soared into the air, growing taller. It soon arrived near Eternal Peace's primordial tree. Suddenly it was a treasure bottle dozens of miles tall. Its mouth was tilted down and hung beside the primordial tree. Starlight flowed out of it like a tide as it formed the entrance to the Flask World. "Brother Dutian, you are now a master of a heaven," Qin Mu said. Dutian Devil King looked up at the Flask World and cried. He felt that his efforts were all worth it. The Flask World was extremely complete. It was the treasure of the Masters of Creation's hidden mountain tribe, and it was considered a high-tier heaven. Not only that, but the bottle of Flask World was made by Masters of Creation, so if one encountered combat, one could use it to kill, though that required powerful consciousness attainments. Today, Qin Mu passed on the Masters of Creation's consciousness cultivation techniques to Eternal Peace. The gods and divine arts practitioners of Eternal Peace combine techniques like the 3 enclosures higher knowledge and today's cultivation system to develop many new consciousness techniques. All Dutian Devil King had to do was learn the techniques from Eternal Peace and get his people to worship the bottle of Flask World to refine it. After that, it would become a great divine weapon that protected them. Dutian Devil King grew excited and immediately entered the Flask World to tell his people about it. After many years, the destruction of Dutian World, the death of countless people, the loss of their homes, their ignored cries for help, and other obstacles, they finally settled down. He was filled with boiling passion. Yet he also knew that his merit in attacking the heavenly feather world wasn't enough for him to obtain a heaven like the Flask World. The Flask World was even larger than the heavenly feather world. Qin Mu gave him the bottle of Flask World out of friendship. Qin Mu inquired about what happened from Yu Zhaoqing, who told him what happened when Dutian Devil King led his people to attack the heavenly feather world. The heavenly feather world was occupied by devils then, and they just so happened to counter the heavenly feather race's techniques. Not only that, but the demon king of their race controlled the heavenly feather race's divine art, so even Yu Zhaoqing could be manipulated. Instead of attacking immediately, Dutian Devil King used his identity in the devil race to sneak into the heavenly feather world and learn the devil's techniques. After 2 years of studying them, he comprehended a way to counter them and then imparted it to people like Yu Zhaoqing. Yu Zhaoqing spread it among her race and attacked after another 2 years of preparation. After that, they managed to land a devastating and swift blow against the devils there that exterminated them within a year after meticulous preparation. Qin Mu listened in and praised, saying, "One will always win if they understand themselves and their enemies. Dutian Devil King has the virtue of a true master." Yu Zhaoqing smiled and said, "In the beginning, Dutian's relationship with the 3 Dragon Dao brothers was bad. He was hung and beaten. After that they got better, and they even saved each other's lives." Qin Mu laughed heartily as he called the 9 heavenly dragons and said, "Are you all staying here or following me to the celestial heavens? If it's the latter, I'll wash away the memories of the previous years and implant new ones. If it's the former, then you all have to change your identities and live and die by eternal peace." The 9 heavenly dragons morphed into humans in disgust. They came to a conclusion and said, "We followed you and know many secrets, Celestial Venerable. If we return, we'll probably be in danger even if you wipe away our memory. Thus we choose to stay here, for we might accomplish something here." Qin Mu took out the life and death book and said, "As such, I'll help you 9 once. I'll remove your names from the life and death book, so that the celestial heavens can't track you down." He shone on the 9 of them with the book and used Yudu divine arts to remove their names from heaven and earth. They suddenly felt relaxed before bowing and thanking him. "Since I'm returning to the celestial heavens, it's time to return the glassy sky pagoda to Prince Yuming." Qin Mu thought about that, and his consciousness entered the Qin word land to retrieve the glassy sky pagoda. when a strange voice was heard that made his heart flutter. At that moment he saw the ancient god egg of the glassy sky pagoda making a strange Tao voice. Not far away, the weird runes on Tai Shi's egg's surface became ever-changing. It also gave off a curious Tao voice. It was as if they were interacting. Sweat covered Qin Mu. He dared not make any noise as he took a treasure from the Qin word land before leaving. When he did that, the two large ancient god eggs became silent, and tranquility was restored. After that, however, curious Tao voices were emitted from the two eggs again. Qin Mu had goosebumps on his body, and his heart was pounding. He thought, the egg of Tai Shi and the other ancient god egg developed intelligence. The life forms inside are communicating. What are they discussing? He had a chilling feel about it. I can't return the glassy sky pagoda to Prince Yuming yet. Qin Mu calmed himself down. It was natural that he thought badly of two ancient gods communicating in their eggs before they were born. There was only one ancient god born from an egg thus far. That was the ancient celestial emperor. If both of them were born, wouldn't there be two more ancient celestial emperors? An ancient celestial emperor was already horrifying. He was dead but not suppressed and had done a lot of evil during his time. If those two ancient gods worked together, the danger would be far larger and wider. I can't alert them now.
Qin Mu's gaze flashed.
He called the dragon Qilin and Yenner and said, the dragons are staying, so you two have to pull the carriage. The dragon Qilin put the lasso on himself. Yenner ran to him and put on the lasso as well. They said, Master, when are we heading off? Qin Mu had just boarded the carriage when the Celestial Heaven's ambassador came. He read out Celestial Emperor's decree, which summoned Gong Sun Yen to the Celestial Heavens. Gong Sun Yen cultivated with Granny C those days to strengthen her cultivation. She followed Ling Yuxiu to learn the Celestial Heavens customs too. Now that she was about to go to the Celestial Heavens to see Celestial Emperor, she became nervous. Qin Mu allowed her to board the carriage, which would carry her and the god official to the Celestial Heavens. He smiled and said, since you're not nervous when you see me, there's even less reason for you to be nervous when you see the 10 Celestial Venerables. According to seniority, my position is above theirs. Cold sweat covered Gong Sun Yan's hand. Qin Mu clutched it before she was able to be calm. Qin Mu solemnly said, we'll go now. Don't use the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge at the Primordial Tree. Use the one outside the capital. Yenner nodded and pulled the carriage to that Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge with the dragon Qilin. Qin Mu sat in the carriage, thinking about the communicating eggs. He was still unnerved as he thought, it seems that I have to find Celestial Venerable Ling's letter that big senior brother left behind. With it, I can use the unchanging substance divine art to understand the Tao language of Tai Shi's egg. With it, I'll know what they're talking about. Yenner and the dragon Qilin pulled the carriage to the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge, and Qin Mu asked the god official, where does this bridge lead to? The Patriarch Creation Palace, Celestial Venerable. Patriarch Creation Palace? Qin Mu's heart shuddered as the carriage entered the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. After a while, the carriage shook as it arrived at the Celestial Heavens. Qin Mu looked out and saw the Patriarch Creation Palace. The number 1 shipyard of the Celestial Heavens was the Patriarch Creation Palace. Although Qin Mu was Celestial Venerable Mu of the Celestial Heavens, it was his first time there. He looked out the window and saw countless gods with 3 heads and 6 arms working about to forge heavy divine weapons. Every strike with their hammers was like a thunder's rumble. They were the Celestial Heavens' heavenly workers, for they had 3 heads, 6 arms, and a frighteningly fast forging speed. The entire Patriarch Creation Palace was a giant shipyard filled with furnaces that had blazing divine flames. The place was alive day and night. Top-tier divine materials and divine gold were shipped there from various great heavens. The place was filled with the most capable Taoist of the Celestial Heavens Tao sect. They were all skilled in algebra. Countless other craftsmen from other worlds were there too. In terms of scale, one Patriarch Creation Palace was enough to rival all of the shipyards of eternal peace. Suddenly, Qin Mu's pupils contracted as he saw the creation divine weapon at the heart of the Patriarch Creation Palace die in what was originally supposed to be the numinous Sky Hall. A giant divine weapon stood erected inside, its 8 giant wheels interlocked like before. They didn't have any mechanical bearings. However, with marvelous ingenuity, when the 8 wheels were in operation, they could continuously imprint runes of creation onto the object that was being created in the center of the wheels. On the 8 wheels, there were incredibly complex runes of creation. As the wheels operated, the runes lit up brightly, and the power of creation surged from the 8 wheels. From the structure of the Jade Capital City, it looked like there were thousands of heavenly furnaces in the city. Those furnaces had pipes made from divine metal, and those pipes were covered with transmission runes, which allowed them to transport the energy in the furnaces to the 8 wheels. In order to start those behemoths, all of the furnaces in the Jade Capital City would need to be lit up, which was very taxing. This is the creation divine weapon created by Celestial Venerable Ling, and is also the treasure that created Ju Wuchen, and the divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu. Qin Mu looked at the creation divine weapon and thought, after the death of Celestial Venerable Yun, this treasure was sent to the celestial heavens. The greatest legacy of the Heaven Han celestial heavens was that creation divine weapon. And at that moment in the Patriarch Creation Palace of the Jade Capital City, the huge heavenly furnaces suddenly lit up. The creation divine weapon was being activated. Qin Mu's heart jumped. He looked over and was inexplicably shocked. The celestial heavens have activated the creation divine weapon. What are they planning to make? The runes of the 8 wheels of the creation divine weapon glowed. The light they emitted was getting brighter and brighter. Qin Mu instructed the Dragon Qilin and Yinner to get closer. When he looked from a distance, he saw giants of the celestial heavens pulling a huge cart with a large pile of meat in it, looking like a mountain. Cultmaster, it's the Grand Duke of Jupiter! The Dragon Qilin exclaimed.
Qin Mu nodded.
The Grand Duke of Jupiter was being sent to the vicinity of the creation divine weapon. Several Taoists got off the cart and carried him off, placing him into the center of the creation divine weapon. He seemed muddle-headed, oblivious to what was happening. At that moment, the 8 wheels began to slowly rotate. The light on the wheels became more and more intense, each rune glowing incomparably bright, shining their brilliance on his body. The creation divine weapon rotated faster, as did the light rays emitted by the runes. One after another, the runes of creation were imprinted onto the Grand Duke of Jupiter's body. He was gradually transforming, growing out his head, limbs, and torso. As the countless runes shone, Qin Mu vaguely saw that some of the runes weren't runes of creation but runes of the ancient god's great Tao, which gave off a dazzling red brilliance. The god official said, "Celestial Venerable Mu, His Majesty is still waiting for us." Qin Mu watched this scene of creation intently and said, "Wait a while. That is runes of South Deity Zhukei's great Tao." Qin Mu was stunned. The Grand Duke of Jupiter was transformed by the runes of creation. His figure was slowly changing into something that looked similar to South Deity Zhukei. And over time the degree of resemblance was getting closer. Not only that, but the ancient god Great Tao of South Deity Zhukei was imprinted on this created body, strengthening the soon-to-be created South Deity, making her stronger. The vermilion bird sacred fire emanated from the body, blazing as it revolved around this newly created South Deity, turning the creation divine weapon bright red. Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. The 10 celestial venerables were planning to recreate South Deity Zhukei. However, they weren't exactly recreating South Deity, but forging a South Deity divine weapon. Why were the celestial heavens recreating South Deity?
Mother, Yinner mumbled.
The Dragon Qilin was at her side, consoling her gently. Qin Mu composed himself and said solemnly, "Yenalong Pai, let's head towards the Jade Capital City." The treasure carriage moved forward, but at a very slow speed. From time to time, Yinner looked back at the created South Deity. Although she knew it wasn't real, she still couldn't look away. God official, why is the Patriarch Creation Palace recreating South Deity? Qin Mu asked. The god official said, "What do I, a lowly official, know? However, I heard a rumor that the celestial venerables were creating weapons, and it's not just limited to South Deity. They also made a copy of East Deity, West Deity, and North Deity, supposedly to be used for the attack on the Great Void." Qin Mu glanced at him and laughed. "You do know quite a bit." The god official laughed apologetically. Earlier, the celestial heavens attacked the Great Void and lost plenty of soldiers and generals, suffering serious losses before it could discover the path to the Great Void. His Majesty was furious and told the 10 celestial venerables that they must definitely conquer this indomitable place. Hence, the 10 celestial venerables instructed the Patriarch Creation Palace to create divine weapons of the 4 deities, intending to use them to suppress the dangers of the Great Void. This isn't a secret in the celestial heavens. Qin laughed heartily and gave him a bag of celestial currency. The god official put the celestial currency into his sleeve and became more at ease. In recent days, the path to the Great Void has been discovered. However, the 10 celestial venerables haven't decided on a safe way to enter the Great Void. It's too troublesome to let everyone in the great army of the celestial heavens cultivate neither thought nor no thought. Also, not everyone can master it. Each time a set of reinforcements is sent, more than half are killed or injured before they reach the Great Void. Those who arrived were remnants of a beaten army. Hence, someone thought of the Emperor of Endless Clouds. Qin interest was piqued. He asked, "The Emperor of Endless Clouds?" This Emperor of Endless Clouds was a rebel. The god official said, however, he went to the Great Void back then and had a way of restraining its peculiarities. Unfortunately, when the 10 celestial venerables summoned Green Deity to ask about him, Green Deity said that he had already drowned the Emperor of Endless Clouds in the river on the orders of Celestial Emperor. The 10 celestial venerables then asked their men to seek out the disciples of the Emperor of Endless Clouds. I don't know what happened after that. Qin remembered that he had come across his big senior brother's divine art in the Great Void. It was also Wei Suifeng's divine art that guided them to the land of the Great Void. Clearly, Wei Suifeng had his own unique method of subduing the Great Void's peculiarities. In that case, does he have any disciples?
Qin probed.
Naturally. The god official said with a smile, the Emperor of Endless Clouds was the great emperor in charge of Endless Clouds Palace. He guarded galaxies such as the First Pillar, Second Pillar, Third Pillar, and the 9 prefectures. The ancient gods there were all ruthless characters. They each had their own races with strong practitioners emerging within. He guarded these places for the celestial heavens. If he didn't have disciples, it would be very hard to fight against these ancient gods. Qin took out another bag of celestial currency and said, "Are you able to get your hands on the geographical map of the Endless Clouds Palace?" The god official quietly accepted the money. His movements were quick, not inferior to cripple. "When we arrive at the numinous Sky Hall, I'll get a geographical map of the Endless Clouds Palace for Celestial Venerable."
Qin nodded gently.
"How do we get to the Endless Clouds Palace?" "I wish to know." The god official hurriedly said, "Since Celestial Venerable had requested, I'll naturally tell you what I know." The treasure carriage drove into the Jade Capital City and arrived at the numinous Sky Hall. Qin and Gong Sunyan got off the carriage as the god official quickly entered the hall to report on their arrival. Gong Sunyan was still a little nervous. Qin smiled as he said, "I'm around, there's nothing to worry about." His consciousness entered the heart of Gong Sunyan's brows and hid inside her divine treasure. Only then did he realize how powerful she was. Her vital qi was as vast as the great ocean of the primordial realm, simply boundless. However, Gong Sunyan's strength wasn't derived from the divine treasures or celestial palaces. It came from her bloodline. "Proclaim, Gong Sunyan is to enter the court for an audience." Gong Sunyan composed herself as she slowly walked into the hall. In the numinous Sky Hall, Celestial Emperor was seated upon his treasure throne. The 10 celestial venerables were also present, each of them sitting upright in a solemn fashion. Under the throne, all of the civil and military officials were gathered together, and all kinds of divine light illuminated the air. Below, Gong Sunyan kowtowed. Celestial Emperor gave a few words of encouragement and allowed her to rise. A court official submitted a report, praising Gong Sunyan for her compassion and virtues and having both ability and political integrity, hence moving the heavens. Celestial Emperor again gave a few words of encouragement and instructed to give them a seat. As Gong Sunyan sat down, a court official submitted another report, praising Gong Sunyan as having extraordinary morality and conduct, and also saying that she was a talent that was able to rule the world. He said, "Mother Earth is morally corrupt and has fallen. Now the primordial realm is without a leader and has descended into chaos. It's difficult for Celestial Venerable Xiao to guard the primordial realm alone. Hence, I recommend appointing Gong Sun Yen as virtuous Earth Sovereign, to be stationed in the primordial realm to share Celestial Venerable Xiao's burden. Celestial Emperor looked at the 10 Celestial Venerables and laughed. What do my beloved ministers think? The 10 Celestial Venerables already had a tacit understanding and nodded in approval in succession. Celestial Venerable Xiao laughed. We'll let your majesty decide. Hence, Celestial Emperor issued a decree, appointing Gong Sun Yen as virtuous Earth Sovereign, permitting her to build celestial palaces and command up to 1,000,000 troops. Gong Sun Yen bowed to give her thanks. The gods chanted in unison, and the hall was enshrouded in divine light. Waves of melodious Tao sound rippled, extremely pleasing to the ear. The 10 Celestial Venerables also blessed Gong Sun Yen with 10 light halos behind her head. Upon seeing this scene, Celestial Venerable Mu, whose consciousness was hiding in the heart of Gong Sun Yen's brows, couldn't help but be put on the spot. There are now 10 pairs of eyes staring at Gong Sun Yen. She's unable to hide anything from them now. At that moment, a halo behind Gong Sun Yan's head quietly exuded a strand of consciousness, which entered the heart of her brows. Qin Mu gave a cold laugh as the consciousness of his that was hiding in the heart of Gong Sun Yan's brows exploded. The consciousness that snuck into the heart of Gong Sun Yan's brows apparently didn't expect to find someone else hiding inside. Immediately, the consciousness became a great overarching consciousness heaven. To his surprise, Qin Mu's consciousness also turned into a great overarching consciousness heaven. The two great overarching consciousness heavens collided, and the two consciousnesses immediately knew each other's identity. Grand Emperor.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
Celestial Emperor also bestowed money, palace maids, and all kinds of treasures. Virtuous Earth Sovereign, compared to here, the lower bound is going through turbulent times. I hope that you'll do your best to suppress that and ensure the safety of the people. Gong Sun Yen nodded, completely oblivious that there was a great battle raging in the heart of her brows. Celestial Emperor dismissed the court, and the 10 Celestial Venerables stepped forward to congratulate Gong Sun Yen and gave her some words of encouragement. The rest of the ministers also stepped forward in succession to give their well wishes. Gong Sun Yen followed the guidance of Ling Yuxiu and acted orderly in accordance with court ritual. She was dignified and stately, which won endless praise from the ministers. As Qin Mu had deposited more consciousness in the heart of Gong Sun Yan's brows, he was about to break the enemy's great overarching consciousness heaven. However, the Grand Emperor's consciousness was more skilled, attacking with an endless stream of consciousness divine arts. Even if Qin Mu was able to overwhelm him by a notch, there was nothing he could do to him. The consciousness of the two kept battling in the heart of Gong Sun Yan's brows. When Gong Sun Yan was done and walked out of the numinous sky hall, Qin Mu immediately came up to her and tapped on the heart of her brows gently. Immediately, the Grand Emperor's invading consciousness was destroyed by him. The Grand Emperor is still very remarkable. He possesses high attainments in the path of consciousness, which I'm unable to match up to. Qin Mu couldn't help but confess his admiration. That confrontation with the Grand Emperor in the heart of Gong Sun Yan's brows had given him a deeper understanding of the Grand Emperor's abilities. The Grand Emperor was able to become one of the 10 Celestial Venerables, and his attainments in the path of consciousness were unmatched, especially after he assimilated the system of divine treasures and celestial palaces. His consciousness divine arts were now much more powerful than before. Young master, what should I do? Immediately after Gong Sun Yen left the numinous sky hall, she became that simple girl again, without any ideas or opinions of her own. She whispered, I don't know how to be this virtuous Earth Sovereign.
Qin Mu laughed.
You don't have to do anything. Gong Sun was puzzled. Qin Mu continued talking, saying, You just need to be yourself and do what you have been doing. Watering every day, planting flowers, fertilizing, catching bugs, raising a nest of phoenixes, and following Granny around, learning her paths, skills, and divine arts. Gong Sun Yen blinked her big sparkling eyes. But, His Majesty Celestial Emperor asked me to build a virtuous Earth Celestial Palace, and I have no experience in this area. That's even simpler. Qin Mu said. You can request a sum of money from Celestial Emperor. After that, you can ask Eternal Peace to build the Celestial Palace for you. As for recruiting soldiers and buying horses, You can leave it to Emperor Yanxiu. Ling Yuxiu would be happy to help you do all these things. You can just concentrate on cultivating. Once your abilities are stronger, you can defeat 10,000 enemies by yourself in battle. That's all you need. I still have to fight battles. Gong Sunyan felt some uneasiness.
Qin mu laft hartili.
Virtuous Earth Sovereign controls half of the primordial realm. If there are rebellious powers, won't she need to suppress them? As he was talking, the god official returned, bringing along with him the treasures bestowed by Celestial Emperor, along with 100 palace maids and an 8 phoenix carriage. The 8 phoenixes were gorgeous and were abnormally big and strong, not inferior to the 9 dragons of Qin Mu's heavenly dragon treasure carriage. The 8 phoenix carriage was the standard for powerful officials. It was a grade lower than the heavenly dragon treasure carriage, but it still wasn't trivial. Gong Sunyan boarded the treasure carriage and reluctantly bid farewell to Qin Mu. The carriage started to move, carrying the many treasures and palace maids as it flew towards the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. Qin Mu's gaze flickered, watching as she left. The blessings given by the 10 celestial venerables behind Yenner's head are troublesome things. They are very difficult to remove and are even more tricky than those given by the ancient gods. However, after Gong Sunyan became Virtuous Earth Sovereign and established the Virtuous Earth Celestial Palace, eternal peace would be famous to foreign troops. That was a good thing. After the calamity of eternal peace, instead of training more soldiers, troop strength had been reduced. Even with the help from North Deity and West Deity, which the country received powerful divine weapons like the 5 Thunder Pot from, it didn't set up the 5 Thunder Army. Rather, it concentrated on developing itself. In the long run, even though the country was wealthy, it wouldn't be strong. In eternal peace, there were currently many gods who had cultivated to the god realm that could be sent to the Virtuous Earth Celestial Palace. Eternal peace would also need to recruit divine arts practitioners into the army, sending them into battle to gain experience in preparation for the future. At that moment, Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Hua, and the rest of the 10 Celestial Venerables walked out of the numinous Sky Hall.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
Celestial Venerable Hong quickly stepped forward and bowed, laughing as he said, Celestial Venerable Mu was actually waiting outside the numinous Sky Hall all along. Why didn't you enter the hall to speak? His Majesty has always been thinking of Celestial Venerable Mu. Qin Mu returned the courtesy and laughed. I came late, and the court was already in session. I'm afraid of disturbing His Majesty and our fellow officials. He was full of suspicion as he examined Celestial Venerable Hong. Celestial Venerable Hong shared some similarities with De Hong, whom he met during the Dragon Han era. They both wore loose robes with large sleeves. However, De Hong was a young man, and Celestial Venerable Hong was an old man with a white beard and white hair, full of vitality. Both were of the demon race. However, according to Divine King Gong Yuan, De Hong was dead. In that case, was Celestial Venerable Hong the Grand Emperor or not? Could it be that the Grand Emperor had come down from the ultimate void in the great overarching consciousness heaven and entered De Hong's corpse? He was full of smiles as he exchanged greetings with Celestial Venerable Hong. Earlier, the two were pitting themselves against each other in the heat of Gong Sunyan's brows. Now they were chatting happily as though nothing had happened. Celestial Venerable Hao stepped forward and said plainly, Celestial Venerable Mu seems to be very busy these days. You never returned to the celestial heavens all these years. For the Heaven Alliance meeting some time back, all celestial venerables and disciples of the Alliance were there, all except you. The Heaven Alliance meeting? Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly. He only knew the 10 celestial venerables who were the elders of the Heaven Alliance, as well as Tao Ancestor and Brahma Buddha, who were also in the Alliance. He hadn't met the rest. He smiled and said, It's my fault, I've been bogged down by trivial matters. I'll definitely be at the next Heaven Alliance meeting. God Emperor Lang Xian stepped forward and examined Qin Mu's heavenly dragon treasure carriage. He smiled ambiguously as he said, How could you change the animals of the treasure carriage that His Majesty gave to you? What happened to the 9 heavenly dragons? Qin Mu sighed and said, My trip this time was very dangerous. Those 9 heavenly dragons perished heroically. God Emperor Lang Xian looked at the treasure carriage and noticed traces of repair. He then laughed coldly. Has Celestial Venerable Mu gone to demolish other people's houses again? No wonder the treasure carriage got beaten until it became like this.
Qin Mu smiled cheekily.
Indeed. Had I known better, I would have demolished Dao Friend's Langxian Divine Palace. At least I wouldn't be hotly pursued and fiercely attacked.
Gu Emperor Long Xuan laughed heartily.
Who dares to demolish my Langxian Divine Palace? What a joke! Qin Mu laughed heartily in response as he thought to himself, I've demolished your Langxian Divine Palace twice. Heavenly Lady Yin came forward, carrying a white cat. She chuckled as she said, Celestial Venerable Mu has been fatigued by the long journey. I can see the hardships. Qin Mu looked at the white cat in her arms and thought puzzledly, this white cat is still alive? The white cat had fear in its eyes when it saw him and hurriedly burrowed into Heavenly Lady Yan's arms.
Qin Mu laughed.
Heavenly Lady, can I borrow your cat to play with for 2 days? Heavenly Lady Yan giggled and said, that won't work. A few years ago, Shaoqi suffered a fright in search of the thief who stole the treasure of His Majesty's ancestral land. He hasn't recovered from it, and is scared when he sees enemies now. That thief is so evil.
Qin Mu sighed.
Too bad. Celestial Venerable Chong stepped forward and bowed, asking curiously, where has Celestial Venerable Mu been all these years? A lot of places. Qin Mu returned the courtesy. The primordial realm, the 4 extreme heavens, running to and fro, and meeting a lot of people. It was extremely tiring. Celestial Venerable Chong sympathized. Celestial Venerable needs to take a good rest. I've refined some medicine that's able to replenish your blood and nourish your body. Shall I send some to Celestial Venerable?
Qin Mu laughed heartily.
I'm a brute, my body isn't worth taking care of. Celestial Venerable Hua also walked up to him. Qin Mu snorted coldly and said plainly, we have already cut off all ties and have nothing to say to each other. Celestial Venerable Hua was expressionless. The flames continued to rotate behind his head as his imposing aura shot up into the sky. He said plainly, I have nothing to say to you as well. As long as you don't stand in my way, I can spare your life. But if you do, Dao Friend Xiao. Qin Mu didn't pay any attention to his words and greeted Celestial Venerable Xiao. Regarding the matter of virtuous Earth Sovereign, I'm full of regrets. Celestial Venerable Xiao hurriedly returned his greetings and smiled. Mother Earth is rebellious and a source of trouble, close to the heart of the celestial heavens. Not only was this source of trouble removed, we now have a talented and righteous virtuous Earth Sovereign. This is a blessing for the primordial realm. Qin Mu's heart shuddered slightly. The other celestial venerables didn't mention Mother Earth, only he did. This showed that he knew about how Qin Mu used his tricks to get rid of Mother Earth in Eternal Peace's capital city. There were hidden meanings within his words. They also contained a warning to Qin Mu. Ancestral God King walked over and simply passed by Qin Mu, holding his head high, proud and haughty. Qin Mu laughed and wasn't bothered by him. Celestial Venerable Su came over and said, Celestial Venerable Mu is very close to my father, Earth Count. Is he still well?
Qin Mu smiled ambiguously.
Dao Brother Earth Count is well, except that he's getting on in age. He's always thinking of his children. He can't help but feel lonely since they aren't around. Celestial Venerable Su said, since he's old, he shouldn't still be clinging on to power. It's better to retire, so as to avoid dying in office. Qin Mu's face was full of smiles. I'll inform him of that. His gaze landed on Celestial Venerable Gong, bowing as he said, Dao Friend Gong.
Celestial Venerable Mu kropka.
Celestial Venerable Gong returned the bow.
Qin Mu examined Celestial Venerable Gong.
She was a solemn and serious woman who didn't give face to anyone and treated people coldly. Hence, he said with a serious expression, I've met with the 9 other celestial venerables and have deep friendships with them. Every one of my Dao friends here loves and respects me as though we're family. I only haven't spoken with Dao Friend Gong. I wonder if you have time to sit down and chat. No, I don't have time, Celestial Venerable Gong said coldly as she turned to leave. The rest of the celestial venerables laughed. Celestial Venerable Mu, please don't take it to heart. Celestial Venerable Gong is like that, cold to everyone. Qin Mu gave 2 dry laughs to hide his embarrassment. Everyone then bid farewell and left in succession. Don't work too hard, and do visit us when you have time. Soon, the great army of the celestial heavens will set forth with the four deities' divine weapons to suppress the great void. Celestial Venerable Mu. You must not miss this. Qin Mu nodded and watched them as they left, his gaze flickering. They must have created the four deities' divine weapons to open a safe passage. As these divine weapons don't have any consciousness, they are able to suppress the peculiarities of the heart devils along the way. However, the heart devils along the road to the great void can even manifest into ancient gods and the ancient celestial emperor, which the four deities' divine weapons won't be able to overcome just by themselves. They'll definitely have to look for the disciples of Big Senior Brother. Celestial Venerable Mu. This is the geographical map of the Endless Clouds Palace that you wanted. The god official called out, and Qin Mu returned to his senses. He gave him the geographic map and laughed. I have also painted the route to the Endless Clouds Palace inside the map. After saying that, he didn't leave but remained looking at Qin Mu. Qin Mu knew what he wanted, and he took out another bag of celestial currency. The god official hid it in his sleeves, bowed and left. Qin Mu returned to the treasure carriage and unfolded the geographical map of the Endless Clouds Palace. He couldn't help but smile after studying it. He also took out another map and compared the two. They were exactly the same. The other geographical map was left to him by Wei Suifeng. Apparently, Endless Clouds Palace was also a place where Wei Suifeng kept treasures, but he didn't know what was hidden there. The geographical map that the god official handed over to Qin Mu detailed the spirit energy mutual shift bridge that would lead to the Endless Clouds Palace. Qin Mu rolled up the geographic map, burning and turning it into ashes, leaving only Wei Suifeng's geographical map. Big Senior Brother asked me to save him according to the map. Fine, we shall follow the map then. However, we'll need to put that off for a while. Yenner, let's head to the Western Heavenly Gate. Yenner and the Dragon Qilin pulled the Heavenly Dragon treasure carriage towards the Western Heavenly Gate. Qin Mu's eyes flickered as he thought, by Yujing of the Western Heavenly Gate's Jasper Flower Palace, the third Heavenly Master of the Celestial Heavens, the reincarnation of South Deity. I shall interact with her first to determine how many times she has died. After which, I'll try to break Son of Heaven Yin's divine art. When he returned to Eternal Peace this time, he asked around for the location of Fengdu. However, no one in Eternal Peace knew where Fengdu was currently hiding. Qin Mu originally planned to go to Fengdu to see Diua, hoping to break Son of Heaven Yin's reincarnation muddle-headedness on Bai Yujing by starting from the Mingdu Heavenly Gate that was in her hands. However, he was unable to do anything as he couldn't find Fengdu. The treasure carriage arrived at the Western Heavenly Gate. Qin Mu called the Dragon Qilin over and took out the vermilion bird feather. He said, Fatty Dragon, go to Jasper Flower Palace and ask the guards at the gate to hand this feather to Bai Yujing. The Dragon Qilin nodded. After some time he came back and said, I've done so. Qin Mu nodded gently and said, go to Western Sect Army Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge and head towards the Endless Clouds Palace from there. In the Jasper Flower Palace, the gaze of the third Heavenly Master of the Celestial Heavens, Bai Yujing, was faint as she pinched the vermilion bird feather in her hands. Suddenly, she got up and walked out of the palace. However, there remained another Bai Yujing on the throne, looking exactly the same as her, as though it was real. During the Dragon Han era, the youth who tricked me into looking at his treasure has reappeared. The same for that fat girl who used the jade pendant to cheat me of my feather. Bai Yujing's eyes blinked as she secretly gritted her teeth. I was really silly back then, but their treasure saved me. I want to see who they are, why they saved me, and why they wanted to cheat me of my feather. Bai Yujing left the Jasper Flower Palace. She flashed and disappeared like a ghost while another Bai Yujing was handling work inside. Her technique was very unique. As the Bai Yujing left behind at Jasper Flower Palace was another strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne that looked and acted exactly like her. Those who were able to cultivate to the Emperor's throne realm and become a heavenly master had a deserved reputation. That was particularly the case for Bai Yujing. Her clashes with Son of Heaven Yin made her incredibly cunning. Then there were her painful resurrections. She pondered over her painful existence and came up with ways to protect her life, which allowed her to even scheme against Son of Heaven Yin. Usually, it was Son of Heaven Yin that schemed against others, but he had almost died to her multiple times. Due to that, The celestial heavens were impressed by her abilities and schemes. Thus, they made her the heavenly master in charge of the Western Sect army. Soon, Bai Yujing went to find where Qin and the Dragon Qilin ended up. She was visibly confused.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
The youth who showed me that treasure was Celestial Venerable Mu? They don't look similar. I vaguely saw him when he came to the celestial heavens. Oh right, I heard that Celestial Venerable Mu was lucky enough to be able to go back in time to make a name for himself in the first year of the Dragon Han era. That would mean his appearance back then is different from his appearance now. She couldn't help but ponder. Why did Celestial Venerable Mu give me that jade pendant then? Why did he protect me from Son of Heaven Yin's schemes? Why did he con away the feather that Celestial Venerable You gave me? She couldn't understand, so she walked towards the Western Sect Army's Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. Celestial Venerable Mu is going to Endless Cloud's palace this time? It's Emperor of Endless Cloud's Wei Suifeng's territory. I heard he was Celestial Venerable Mu's brother. Bai Yujing gently frowned, for she was unnerved. Celestial Venerable Xiao found out that Wei Suifeng was a disciple of founding Emperor's Dreg. He ordered me to set a trap so that I could arrest him together with Green Deity. That fellow was tough. I worked with Green Deity to scheme against him at the Endless Cloud's palace before we could bring him down. Could Celestial Venerable Mu want to avenge his brother by getting me to go to Endless Cloud's palace? She examined the vermilion bird feather and was hesitant. It gave off some vermilion bird sacred fire. The holy flames were extremely powerful and could burn anything. It was second only to the Tao flames of the great Tao of heavenly fire, but it was more dangerous than heavenly fire. Heavenly fire was the flame of microscopic crystals. It was usually safe, for its power was contained when untouched. However, the vermilion bird sacred fire was violent, and could destroy heaven and earth at any moment. Yet it never hurt her at all. Bai Yujing was confused. Although her cultivation was great, she had no attainments in fire divine arts. Her divine arts were based on the path of space, and she was also skilled with the Tao sect's algebra and Buddhist teachings. To avoid death back then, she spent a lifetime as a Taoist nun under Tao ancestors' Tao sect. She even spent a lifetime as a bodhisattva under Brahma Buddha. Although she wasn't proficient with fire divine arts, the vermilion bird sacred fire was close to her, which made her curious. The vermilion bird plume feather was given to her by Celestial Venerable You. She said that it was related to her birth and identity. Yet, Bai Yujing could already recall the memories of 197 of her lifetimes. In the memories prior to the 99th lifetime, Celestial Venerable You would always pass her the feather and say the same thing to her. Her memories could even be traced back to the primordial era, but she didn't want to do that anymore. Though she was still curious. Just as she hesitated about entering the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge, the Bai Yujing in the Jasper Flower Palace ordered her army to be deployed to the Great Void. In the camp there, gods and devils held the divine weapon of West Deity that was built according to West Deity's corporeal body. It was vast and had infinite power. Amongst the thousands of devils, a middle-aged monk and a middle-aged Taoist were the most eye-catching as they passed by the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. Bai Yujing halted them both and said, "Taoist Bai Yu, Monk Lingyue, come here. I seek your opinion on something." They came forward and asked, "What's the matter, Heavenly Master?" They were disciples of the Tao sect and Buddhism that came to seek shelter with her. Although they were lowly, Bai Yujing saw how their wisdom and bravery were extraordinary. They often plotted for her and were rare talents, so she valued them. Bai Yujing's wisdom was trained from escaping death hundreds of times, while they had great wisdom naturally, so Bai Yujing would ask them for advice when she met something difficult. The task of escorting the divine weapon to the Great Void was also handed to the two of them. Bai Yujing told them her concerns. They looked at each other, and Monk Lingyue smiled and said, "Are you worried about being too close to Celestial Venerable Mu, which will leave you vulnerable to the other Celestial Venerables? Or are you afraid that Celestial Venerable Mu is aiming to harm you to avenge the Emperor of Endless Clouds?" Bai Yujing said, "Both." Monk Lingyue addressed her concerns. If Celestial Venerable Mu wanted to harm you, he would have done so in the Dragon Han era. All he had to do was not save you, and you would have died to Son of Heaven Yin with no chance to reincarnate. Why would he go through such troubles? Bai Yujing understood him instantly and felt slightly relaxed, saying, I'll find him. The task of escorting the divine weapon to the Great Void will belong to the two of you. You two have great intelligence and wisdom, so you must help each other along the way and be extra careful. That thieving founding Emperor Qin Yi has talents under him too. He has 4 great heavenly teachers as well. She stopped for a bit before continuing. Heavenly teacher fisherman and martial arts heavenly teacher aren't causes for concern. Only Saint Woodcutter and heavenly teacher scholar are. Especially Woodcutter. He's crooked. I fought him several times and I couldn't win. That heavenly teacher scholar called Zishi as well. Although he's a scholar, his bravery and wisdom are great, which renders him dangerous. Taoist Baiyu and monk Lingyue nodded in acknowledgement. Bai Yujing hesitated before taking out a jade pendant and handkerchief, saying, Zishi is powerful. If you two can't win, take these 2 items out. She blushed with some embarrassment as she said. He gave me the pendant and I sewed the handkerchief. I wanted to give it to him. Show him these 2 items and he'll likely let you two go. Now go. They rarely saw her feminine side, which left them looking at each other in confusion. Bai Yujing chased the 2 of them away as she walked hastily into the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge towards the Endless Clouds Palace. They left the celestial heavens with the Western Sect army under them. They didn't have ships, so they rode on chariots. It was faster than ships, but they had to slow down to escort the West deity divine weapon. Heavenly Master Bai seems to like heavenly teacher Zishi. Monk Lingyue whispered. Does she not realize that heavenly teacher Zishi is a lady? Taoist Baiyu said. I think not. She seems to be deeply in love. Although martial arts heavenly teacher Guancha failed to see that too. Monk Lingyue smiled and said, Martial arts heavenly teacher is barely smarter than some cows. It would be weird if he could. However, Bai Yujing is very wise, but she fell for heavenly teacher Zishi too. These 2 women. Taoist Baiyu glanced at him, coughed and said, Emperor, you're a monk now. Maintain your image. Monk Lingyue immediately became serious, seeming as if he was a high monk as he said, Bai Gui, what do you plan for this trip? Are we really escorting the weapon into the Great Void? Taoist Baiyu smiled and said, White Tiger controlled the army and used it to only kill Taoist ancient gods. The 10 celestial venerables have divine weapons. Celestial venerable, yes. We control the 4 deities' divine weapons. Maybe we can test the power of the strong practitioners of the celestial heavens. With a deep gaze he whispered, The Great Void is destined to be a place of great bloodshed. 11:15 The attack must penetrate, and the battle must be one tales of hurting gods. After half a year, the 4 deities' divine weapons were escorted into the Great Void and into the crumbling void. The most terrifying bit of the Great Void was the star journey between the entrance and the Great Void. The gods and devils of the celestial heavens named it. It was called the Crumbling Void. In there, one could get anything one wanted, for thoughts became reality. It was just that one's internal fears also became reality. Devils in people's hearts would turn real and kill people from the void. The void there was filled with chaotic and complex ownerless consciousness, caused by the invasion of the Great Void by the Grand Emperor. The Great Void was a world visualized and created by the primordial masters of creation. Yet when this world collapsed, countless masters of creation died with it, and the heaven, earth and stars they visualized were also destroyed along with the void. When outsiders entered, the devils in their hearts would be captured by ownerless consciousness and turned into reality. That was why the celestial heavens army and generals were lost every time. Yet, the 4 deities' divine weapons had no such devils, so they could suppress the peculiarities of the Great Void. The armies of the 4 sects of the celestial heavens sent the weapons to the collapsing void. Initially, everything was all right, as the powerful divine weapons suppressed the chaotic consciousness around them. They guarded a section of the void for the army of the celestial heavens to enter into the Great Void straight from its entrance. Yet, when the weapons were set up, a peculiar change that no one expected occurred. The divine weapon West deity went out of control and killed the Western sect army, causing chaos. Taoist Baiyu and monk Lingyue stood on its shoulders, their primordial spirits driving the god to go on a rampage. The divine weapon West deity was a divine weapon made from copying West deity's corporeal body. Although it wasn't a divine weapon celestial venerable Yu, it was still incredible. They used their divine arts to manipulate it, as if they were controlling an ancient god of war. The divine weapon West deity deployed their divine arts, and sword lights crisscrossed in the vast collapsing void. Golden dragons thousands of miles long flew around, destroying war chariots and killing those on board. The corpses were scattered across the void. That part of the road in the collapsing void was lost. The Western sect army was defeated, so devils began to breed in soldiers' hearts, causing them to spawn in the void. First we'll break the Western sect army, then the Southern sect army, and then the Eastern sect army. That way we can take the South deity divine weapon and East deity divine weapon. Taoist Baiyu plainly said. We shall end it with the Northern sect army. Once we take the North deity divine weapon, we can enter the Great Void and rendezvous with Carefree Village's strong practitioners. Monk Lingyue frowned and said, even if we are exceptionally powerful, can we deal with the sect armies? Any of them can deal with 3 to 5 strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne. Besides, they are under the celestial heavens 4 great heavenly teachers. There are many wise disciples in their midst. It'll be hard. Emperor speed is a crucial asset of war. If you're right, we're done for. Thus, our attack must penetrate, and we must win the battle. If we're to fight, we must catch them off guard. Taoist Baiyu suddenly said. Besides, we aren't alone. We have an infinitely large army. Monk Lingyue's heart fluttered. He looked back and saw countless ferocious-looking and terrifying heart devils swarming towards them. Taoist Baiyu said. They are our army. They can help us defeat the Southern sect army, and chase their remains to attack the Eastern sect army. Once we have the other 2 divine weapons, it'll be easy to defeat the Northern sect army. They drove the West deity divine weapon to lead the heart devils towards the Southern sect army. They hadn't gotten the news yet, so it was too late when they saw the endless heart devils rushing towards them. The soldiers guarding the divine weapon were experienced, and they immediately inserted their primordial spirits into the South deity divine weapon to become a vermilion bird and face the enemies. Yet, in the next moment, the Southern sect army was already routed by the West deity divine weapon. The clash of the divine weapons was akin to the clash of the ancient god South deity and ancient god West deity. The Southern sect army suffered heavy casualties as a result. The army of heart devils burst forth, and the Southern sect army collapsed. The crumbling void almost became a slaughterhouse where heart devils massacred the sect armies. During the chaos, Taoist Baiyu and Monk Lingyue worked together to execute the warriors controlling the South deity divine weapon. With one of them at the helm of each divine weapon, they charged towards the Eastern sect army with even more heart devils. They used war to feed war, taking a large number of heart devils to attack the Eastern sect army. As such, they collapsed even faster, leaving behind countless bodies for the Great Void entrance. When Taoist Baiyu and Monk Lingyue got control of the East deity divine weapon, the former immediately used the South deity divine weapon to pick it up. He flew into the air to avoid the heart devils and drove straight towards the nearby Northern sect army, with the West deity divine weapon controlled by Monk Lingyue. The warriors of the Northern sect army had already received the news, and thousands of gods and devils' primordial spirits had entered the North deity divine weapon corporeal body in preparation. However, when they saw the overwhelming amount of heart devils flooding towards them, despair overwhelmed them. The celestial heavens heard about it, but by the time Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Hong arrived, most of the 4 sect armies were already lost. The powerful million-man army of the celestial heavens was almost lost entirely. Only the Eastern sect army escaped with half of its strength. Countless more were trapped in the crumbling void, surrounded by heart devils and faced with the threat of death. The 2 great celestial venerables searched around but were unable to find the 4 deities' divine weapons. That shocked the celestial heavens. It was the biggest setback the celestial heavens had suffered since the High Emperor era. The celestial heavens was furious as they ordered the Patriarch Creation Palace to rebuild the weapons. The 4 great heavenly teachers readjusted the 4 sect armies' power and mobilized the army of the 4 great deities. They brought on the Celestial River Navy and put Celestial Venerable Hua and Celestial Venerable Hong in charge as they went into the Great Void. At the same time, Taoist Baiyu and Monk Lingyue descended upon the Great Void with the 4 deities' divine weapons. They were visibly travel-worn as they smiled at each other when they walked towards the Masters of Creation's God City. The Masters of Creation were alerted, as if they were facing a large enemy. The two of them came to the city, and Taoist Baiyu solemnly said, "The previous Imperial Preceptor of Eternal Peace, Zhang Baigui, and Grand High Emperor Yanfeng are here to help." The Masters of Creation had never heard of them, so they looked at each other, refusing to open the gates. At the same time, Yan Yunxi rushed there with the armies of the Masters of Creation and Carefree Village. She was glad when she heard the news, and she became even more glad when she went up the city towers. She said to the chiefs of the Masters of Creation, "The number one Heavenly Master and the Celestial Emperor of Eternal Peace are here. Everyone, welcome them with me." The gates were opened, and imposing Masters of Creation stood on the sides. Yan Yunxi brought the Masters of Creation chiefs to welcome them personally, saying, "Founding Emperor's Heavenly Master Zishi hereby welcomes and congratulates the number one Heavenly Master and the Celestial Emperor of Eternal Peace with the chiefs of the Masters of Creation." Monk Lingyue was shocked as he stood on the palm of the West Deity Divine Weapon. He smiled and said, "How did it become the Celestial Emperor of Eternal Peace? Don't say that. I'm merely the Great High Emperor." Taoist Baiyu came forward and said, "Heavenly Teacher Zishi, I'm merely the former Imperial Preceptor, not the Heavenly Master. There are batches of incredibly intelligent people in every era of history. They are exceptionally powerful, yet they are good in nature. This causes them to have no accomplishments and fame." Yan Yunxi invited them in, saying, "I studied history and read through countless ancient texts. I came across a record that talked about Dragon Mountain Sanren as the number one Heavenly Master of the Dragon Han era, defeating Heavenly Master Shang Paining. Yet the ancient record didn't pass down his battle records. Jiang Baigui Dao Friend Jiang, you broke 1,000,000 soldiers of the celestial heavens, 4 great heavenly teachers. No one will record that down. However, you too did well, so shouldn't you be the number one Heavenly Master of Eternal Peace? Number one Heavenly Master of the Dragon Han era? Dragon Mountain Sanren?" Taoist Baiyu leisurely said, "That senior didn't chase fame nor profits. I admire him." Yan Yunxi laughed and said, "The feat you two accomplished today is on par with that of Dragon Mountain Sanren." 1116 Celestial Venerable Ling S. Letter. Western Heaven. Endless Clouds Palace. Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. A beam of light fell down and formed the Heavenly Dragon Treasure Carriage on the bridge. Qin Mu walked out and examined the area. He saw the Endless Clouds Palace in ruins, with collapsing palaces dotting the area. Some of its divine gold and materials were even taken away and used. All that was left were broken walls. It was as if someone raided the place and scraped it clean of valuables. The current Endless Clouds Palace only had a few gods left guarding it. They had white hair and looked pale with shabby clothes. They saw Qin Mu's carriage from afar, observed it, and didn't dare to approach it. Yenner flew over, and those gods ran away before being caught by Yenner and wrestled to the ground. "Have mercy on us." Those gods kowtowed. Qin Mu frowned and asked, "What happened to the Endless Clouds Palace?" "You don't know about this, but after the last incident with the Emperor of Endless Clouds, the celestial heavens didn't send a new Emperor of Endless Clouds to protect this place. Thus, the 3 pillar heavens and 9 prefectures went rampant and raided it countless times." A god with shabby clothes cried out, "There were many brothers protecting this place originally, but they were abducted into slavery. Only the old, weak, and diseased are left. 2 days ago, another group of thieves raided this place again. They found nothing and thus extracted blood from some of our brothers, claiming they needed it to refine treasures." Qin Mu was stunned as he asked, "Why didn't you all report this to the celestial heavens?" "I wouldn't dare," the old gods cried. "The demon king said that if we do, they'll kill us." Qin Mu didn't know what to do as he looked around from the top of the Endless Clouds Palace. He saw how the palace stood within Pillar 1, 2, 3, and the 9 prefectures. One could view all of them from there. The so-called Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 were pillar heavens. Pillar heavens were worlds in pillar form. Qin Mu looked into the distance and saw 3 pillars above the 9 prefectures. The stars coalesced, for they were heavenly pillar worlds formed from stars. The 9 prefectures of Western Heaven included East-South God Prefecture called Dawn Earth, South High Prefecture called Deep Earth, West-South Weapon Prefecture called Flood Earth Proper West Cover Prefecture, called Open Earth Central God Hope Prefecture, called White Earth West North Pillar Prefecture, called Fat Earth North Black Prefecture, called Capable Earth East North Salt Prefecture, called Hidden Earth, and Proper East Raised Prefecture, called Trusted Earth. The prefectures had their own ancient gods. It was the same for the three-pillar heavens. They were called the three-pillar gods. The Endless Clouds Palace was built between the three-pillar heavens and 9 prefectures. In the latter age of the Dragon Han era, the celestial heavens flew up and away from the primordial realm. The Dragon Han split, and the star gods and 4 ancient god deities left the primordial realm and the celestial heavens for other parts of the universe. The 4 poles were the residences of the 4 deities, while Western Heaven, Eastern Heaven, Southern Heaven, and Northern Heaven were ruled by the White Deity, Green Deity, Red Deity, and Black Deity, respectively. They were named the 4-color deities and were distinguished by their assigned colors. They were different from the 4 deities because they cultivated from being post-celestial life forms or half-gods. They had a lot of power and 4 great celestial palaces each in their hands. The Endless Clouds Palace was one of them in Western Heaven and belonged to White Deity. From the Dragon Han era until now, there were endless wars. The 4-color deities changed too. Every time one of them died in combat, Celestial Emperor would choose a strong practitioner of the Emperor's throne realm to replace them. The only one not replaced was Black Deity In Chao Jin. He was called Son of Heaven In and held the position of Black Deity firmly. He ruled Northern Heaven and built Mingdu. The place the Endless Clouds Palace was at was part of Western Heaven. When combined with 3 other great realms, they collectively formed Western Heaven. It's impressive that Big Senior Brother was able to suppress 12 ancient gods alone. Qin Mu looked down at the 9 prefectures below. He saw how they were connected and contained many half-god races and post-celestial life forms. He looked into the distance and saw the land shrouded in murderous intent. Bloodlight filled the skies as wars began in the prefectures. Looking below from there, one could see the waves created by terrifying divine arts. Mushroom clouds rose, accompanied by dense god light. Why is it still so chaotic despite the presence of ancient gods? Qin Mu asked. A white-haired god shook his head and said, "The ancient gods guarding the place have never cared about these things. When those thugs below declare war, they'll sacrifice meat and blood to them, so they'll descend and kill too." Qin Mu frowned and asked, "What about the Emperor of Endless Clouds' disciples? They escaped after he was captured. They likely became demons and devils in the lower bound. Maybe they were part of those who raided the Endless Clouds Palace." An old god said, "The celestial heavens came searching for them a couple days ago. They didn't find them here, so they went down for them. They haven't returned yet." Qin Mu waved his hand, letting them back down. Yenner couldn't help but give them some spirit pills to fill their stomachs. Those gods were very grateful and ate them quickly. They cried and said, "It's been so long. All we've been eating are the bark and leaves of the palaces. But those D*Ned people came up and took even the divine trees, so now there's not even bark." The old gods cried when they talked about it. Qin Mu took out Wei Suifeng's map and matched it with the palace. He found the marked point, but it was empty, being nothing but rubble. Qin Mu frowned as he lifted his hand. The rubble began to float and form a large palace in the air that slowly descended. Qin Mu entered and looked around. He saw a broken star picture on the top. He went underneath it to examine it. It was tattered, which made it hard for him to imagine what it would be like if it was complete. Qin Mu went silent as his vital qi burst forth to create stars to make up the rest of the star picture. He knew about Wei Suifeng's celestial dipper technique. It was a technique that came from the great educational heavenly devil scriptures, so it was easy for him to patch up the star picture. It was patched up and an object fell from it. It was a potted plant. Qin Mu caught it. It was rectangular with fake mountains, trees, and water in it. There were small needle leaf pines beside the center fake mountain, which had many whirly branches. There was a small house with a yard beneath it. There were 3 rooms to each side of it and 3 main halls with doors and windows. One could see light coming from the inside, as well as papers on the desk and chairs. There was a pot of tea too, which was steaming. The letter of Celestial Venerable Ling. Qin Mu became passionate, as the potted plant wasn't actually one. It was a shrunken version of Celestial Venerable Ling's old residence created by Wei Suifeng via spatial divine arts that he put into the potted plant. Her residence was simple. After her death, her manuscripts were moved by the celestial heavens. Even her residence was moved. Soon it was stolen. The person who stole it was Wei Suifeng. I finally found Celestial Venerable Ling's letter. Qin Mu's heart pounded as he looked to the other rooms. They were filled with manuscripts. It was clear that Celestial Venerable Ling put a lot of effort into researching the path of creation and the unchanging divine art. With it, I can comprehend Celestial Venerable Ling's unchanging divine art and creation divine art. I can even use it to reverse engineer the Taisher Egg's Great Tao runes and break the unchanging divine art from there. Qin Mu was planning on entering the potted plant when powerful divine art waves appeared. An extremely powerful aura was approaching Endless Cloud's palace rapidly. Qin Mu's heart fluttered as he stored the potted plant. He walked out of the hall, and as soon as he did, it collapsed to form rubble. Yenner and the dragon Qilin also noticed someone's rapid approach. When they looked in that direction, they saw 6 gods and devils chasing a young man with unique divine arts. Their divine arts were like a crimson flag erected in the sky that unfolded with the wind as it rotated. Countless rusty iron swords shot out of the flags to attack the young man as soon as it rotated. Blood Rust Flag Scripture, the technique of White Deity. Qin Mu looked up. White Deity of Western Heaven was also called Gold Deity, for he was the master of golden auras. His scripture once beat martial arts heavenly teacher Guan Cha. It was powerful. Qin Mu once faced Prince Chou Ming, who cultivated it, so he was familiar with it. You Chudu, you won't escape. You should stay and return to the celestial heavens with us. The young god withstood their attacks as he ran while fighting. He planned to escape to the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. The disciples of White Deity attacking him were powerful. They were all strong practitioners of the Jade Capital Realm with fresh skulls dripping blood on their waists. The young god was injured but bravely fought on. His divine arts were perfect. In a moment, he caused the celestial river to be hung upside down. It was the hanging of the celestial dipper.
Célestial Dipé Technique.
Its big senior brother Wei Suifeng's disciple. Qin Mu's eyes flashed. It was an emperor's throne technique that he comprehended by combining the great educational heavenly devil scriptures that he cultivated with other techniques, the great Tao of Xuandu, and the ancient era Xuandu and celestial river. That young god should be Wei Suifeng's favorite disciple since he was able to get his true teachings. The experts of the celestial heavens were there to arrest him in order to get the method to endure the crumbling void. He was too powerful, however, for he had already cultivated the celestial dipper technique to the Jade Capital Realm. Even the collaboration of 6 Jade Capital Realm strong practitioners of the celestial heavens couldn't take him down. However, he was too heavily injured for him to escape. 6 blood rust flags surrounded him, each 100 feet apart. Countless rusty swords went through them, while those 6 White Deity disciples hovered in the air, refusing to get closer. There was rusty gold air reverberating wherever the rusty swords went, causing the affected areas to become powder. Yuchudu's celestial dipper technique was already at a very high realm. However, he couldn't break out of the flag formation no matter how much he tried, for he was trapped by 6 of the flags. White Deity's technique was unique. It was more akin to formation techniques. If only one person deployed it, it was merely a normal Emperor's Throne technique. However, the power of the technique grew exponentially when more people used it. The collaboration of 6 Jade Capital Realm gods made them more powerful than a god or devil in the numinous sky realm. It was already incredible that Yuchudu could resist until now. However, his capture was inevitable. Suddenly Qin Mu was moved. He looked up and saw a ship above the Endless Cloud's palace. There were long spears stuck in it that had skulls on them. The skulls opened their mouths, and the tips of those long spears stuck out of the skulls' mouths, making the skulls seem more sinister. The way the gods and devils handled things was unspeakably barbaric. It was as if they were in the prehistoric era. A man with a purple shirt stood at the front of the ship with his hands behind his back. His gaze fell on that young god. Qin Mu looked up. The man felt something and swept his gaze over. His eyebrows jumped as he pleasantly shouted, "Celestial Venerable Mu." The ship stopped and that man walked off the ship. He bowed and said, disciple of Celestial Venerable Hao White Deity's Beta Ceti Star Sovereign, Jing Baichuan, hereby pays his respects to Celestial Venerable Mu. Qin Mu examined him and said with a hint of shock, "You're a Star Sovereign of the Western Heaven Palace, Beta Ceti Star Sovereign? As an ancient god, why would you become Celestial Venerable Hao's disciple?" Jing Baichuan smiled and said, "Celestial Venerable Mu doesn't know about this, but Beta Ceti Star Sovereign is dead. I killed him, so I replaced him as the Star Sovereign of Beta Ceti. I took his skull and refined it to be a divine weapon and ate his corporeal body. The flesh of the ancient gods is tasty. Celestial Venerable Mu, have you tried it?" Qin Mu shook his head and said, "I've killed many ancient gods, but I haven't tasted their blood and flesh." Jing Baichuan laughed. "I heard that Celestial Venerable Mu killed ancient gods before too, but that was a thing of the Dragon Han era. The ancient gods then were brutal and barbaric. Although they were born from the great Tao of heaven and earth, they knew little about their own great Taos. However, today's ancient gods drill and research into their own great Taos, and are thus way more powerful than those of the Dragon Han era." Qin Mu acknowledged it and said, "You certainly are more powerful to be able to kill Beta Ceti Star Sovereign and replace him." Jing Baichuan smiled, looked at the attack on Yuchudu by the 6 experts, and leisurely said, "Celestial Venerable Mu, if, let's say, I transmigrated and returned to the first year of the Dragon Han era, could I have become Celestial Venerable Jing?" Qin Mu smiled and said, "Maybe, or maybe you would die. Worthy nephew, the skulls on your ship, they are the disciples of the Emperor of Endless Clouds." Jing Baichuan leisurely said, "The Emperor of Endless Clouds rebelled and was arrested. His disciples failed to receive mercy and be grateful and instead chose to escape to the world of the 9 prefectures, becoming bandits. I was too lazy to care, but the celestial heavens ordered me to clean up. These skulls are to be exchanged for military exploits. If your skull could be used to exchange for that, I would be glad to take it. Unfortunately," Qin Mu smiled and said, "my head is worth it. At least 7 of the 10 celestial venerables want it. One could be rewarded for one's gamble. Worthy nephew, you could be doomed or become extremely rich. Don't you want to try it?" Jing Baichuan's eyebrows lifted as he laughed. "Don't tempt me, Celestial Venerable. I'm weak." Qin Mu smiled before suddenly saying loudly, "Purple Han returns to the Celestial Dipper's side hilt. Rarefaction causes the horse trapped in haste." Yuchudu, who was trapped in the flag formation, heard it and suddenly had an idea. He used his divine art and it changed rapidly. Purple gas filled the air, and the river hung in a balance. Using the Celestial Dipper as a hilt, the power of his divine art grew rapidly. Those 6 white deity disciples originally trapped him. However, the 6 blood rust flags suddenly rotated disorderly. A celestial river gathered the Celestial Dipper, surrounding the 6 great flags. Their divine arts were suddenly thrown into chaos, allowing Yuchudu to use the Purple Han returns to break away. Jing Baichuan's eyes jumped as his gaze landed on Qin Mu. Qin Mu leisurely said, "A batch of stars has countless bright stars while a moon falls in the tree." Yuchudu suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and used the Celestial Dipper technique. With the split of his hands, a gap in the heaven appeared. Dazzling stars fell out of it to cut open an expert white deity disciple at the Jade Capital realm. His primordial spirit escaped. However, the moonlight shone brightly. He looked up and saw a bright moon crashing down from the sky, pulverizing his primordial spirit. Yuchudu broke out of the formation without waiting for Qin Mu's advice. His techniques changed as the celestial river circled him. The stars were resplendent as they suppressed the blood rust flag. He was obviously a brave and intelligent person. The celestial river circled after suppressing a blood rust flag to lock another god in the Jade Capital realm. With the closing of his palm, countless stars flooded into the other god's body and went out of his back. His body shuddered as those stars almost let out all of his blood and essence. His primordial spirit was also beaten up until it died. With one strike, Yuchudu immediately avoided the attacks from the other 4. His body changed to become that of an ancient star sovereign to attack another primordial spirit. That god became groggy-minded as his primordial spirit was pulled out. It was only with the lucky rescue of the 3 others that he survived. Jing Baichuan could no longer watch. He rose up and his figure disappeared immediately, In the next moment, he appeared in front of Yuchudu. Yuchudu was shocked and quickly unleashed his celestial dipper technique against Jing Baichuan. Jing Baichuan flipped his hand up, and lightning and thunder appeared. A seal then vaguely appeared. It was his palm seal that had control over heaven and earth. The dragon and phoenix talismans beneath it were clearly visible. Even Heaven Duke's heavenly Tao, Earth Count's great Tao of Yudu, and Mother Earth's great Tao of magnetism were imprinted in his palm markings. He was like a ruler who controlled all of the pre-celestial great Taos of the world as he crushed the celestial dipper technique, the celestial river, and the celestial dipper with one strike. The giant seal crashed down, and Yuchudu spat out blood as his bones were snapped. He fell into the ashes. Boom! The endless clouds palace shook. It was high up and floating above the 3-pillar heavens and 9 prefectures, yet it sank by hundreds of miles due to one hit from Jing Baichuan's seal. He was Celestial Venerable Hao's disciple, and such a divine art was so powerful that even Qin Mu couldn't help but praise it. Yuchudu climbed up shakily and crisscrossed his hands in front of his chest in a defensive posture. However, he suddenly spat out blood and fell down. One of his broken bones stabbed through the skin on his right leg, causing it to protrude outside. Yuchudu groaned but said nothing. Jing Baichuan plainly said, "With my abilities, Celestial Venerable Mu, could I have become a Celestial Venerable during the Dragon Han era to play around?" Qin Mu's voice came from behind him. "I was uncertain previously, but as soon as you struck, I knew it was impossible. That divine art was something Celestial Venerable Hao imparted to you. You have nothing of your own. You may be powerful, but it would be hard for you to become a golden commander during the Dragon Han era. It would be even more difficult for you to become a Celestial Venerable." Jing Baichuan acknowledged it and slowly lifted his palm. He smiled and said, "So how did you become a Celestial Venerable during the first year of the Dragon Han era, Celestial Venerable Mu?" Halfway through his divine art, he stopped because he felt murderous intent behind him. Qin Mu's murderous intent locked him there, causing his muscles to tense up. It seemed like he would be executed by Qin Mu if he moved. One has to get rid of the restraint of realms to become a Celestial Venerable. Qin Mu's calm voice said. Celestial Venerable Ling became unchanging substance, becoming the mist of the surging river. She brought me back to the first year of the Dragon Han era. My techniques were incomplete then. They were just at the Celestial Being realm, 2 realms away from the Divine Bridge realm. Yet, I had no opponents amongst the divine arts practitioners then. Even Mistress Yuanmu's projection couldn't catch my divine arts. Reverberations came from the sheath on his waist as he leisurely said, "You can go back to the past and become a Celestial Venerable. However, you need power that ignores realms. I'm at the True God realm now. Worthy nephew, what realm are you in?" Jing Baichuan tried really hard to deter his murderous intent as he slowly raised his palm while staring maliciously at Yuchudu, who was frozen. He coldly said, "Since a long time ago, judging by realms, I'm at the peak of the Jade Capital realm. Another step and I'll be in the numinous Sky realm. Then, you can try and experience the true power of real Celestial Venerables." Qin Mu looked at his back and said, "However, this may be your last strike too." Jing Baichuan's palm suddenly raised, and at the same time Qin Mu rushed forward. The broken sword at his waist automatically leaped from its sheath and shot forward before being caught by him. Jing Baichuan's palm reached the top as he suddenly turned around. The thunder and lightning rose again, and the seal went towards Qin Mu. His blood boiled and became a sea of blood in the air. The seal went through it, causing the talismans to be dyed red. His body dazzled as thousands of Taos surrounded him. His celestial palace appeared. The southern heavenly gate, celestial street, and heavenly market rose one by one. Halls were rapidly built as the Jade Capital stood high up. Beneath the numinous sky hall was his vast and imposing corporeal body. Behind him was the even more grand numinous sky treasure hall. "My celestial palace is my realm." His palm fell, and with a voice like thunder he said, "I'm in a place where I can't be defeated." Yet he was facing the broken sword of Qin Mu. With its cleave, it became a long knife that had knife light 1,000 feet long. It cut open the dyed seal instantly. The knife light fell, and the southern heavenly gate was cut into 2 evenly. It disappeared, and Qin Mu stabbed forward with his sword, causing the halls of Jing Baichuan's celestial palace to collapse and fall apart. The third move of Qin Calamity Sword, Facing Calamity. Facing Calamity Sword was a Dao sword that chopped off celestial palaces and divine treasures to allow one to face calamities. It also cleaved the celestial palaces and divine treasures of others to get them to face calamities. Jing Baichuan saw rolling sword streams pick up divine palaces and halls. His celestial palace was falling apart. In Qin Mu's sword light, even the water in his jade pool was boiling. Jing Baichuan hollered, and celestial palaces rose, which became connected to his main one. In total there were 5 of them. The other 4 celestial palaces had imposing primordial spirit apparitions. The 4 primordial spirits used the great Tao of the various celestial palaces to attack Qin Mu. He cultivated 5 Emperor's Throne techniques to the Jade Capital realm. He also fused and connected them, which made his level of comprehension and aptitude extraordinary. The divine arts from the 5 celestial palaces were all unique. As the useful right-hand man under White Deity, he naturally cultivated White Deity's blood rust flag. Beside it, his other Emperor's Throne techniques were powerful too. However, the primordial spirits in his 4 celestial palaces weren't real, only apparitions of the main primordial spirit. The celestial heavens hadn't managed to get Crimson Emperor's 3 primordial spirit undying God consciousness, preventing one from cultivating the real primordial spirit in the other celestial palaces and hence limiting the accomplishments of other Emperor's Throne techniques. The sword light of Qin Mu's Facing Calamity sword whooshed past the blocking of the 4 great celestial palaces' primordial spirit, as if it was a torrent. In the next moment, Jing Baichuan's God execution stage collapsed. The 2 bits of baleful air were crimson. It was clear that many gods and devils had died in his hands, causing his God execution stage to be powerful. Yet, even those 2 bits of baleful air were extinguished in the sword light. In his 4 great celestial palaces, the primordial spirit apparitions attacked to try and stop Qin Mu. However, Qin Mu's figure was like an arrow that left a bow. With a loud boom, the illustrious virtue gate of the Jade Capital collapsed. The glorious sword light destroyed everything along the path of the celestial street, and reached the front of Jing Baichuan instantly. Jing Baichuan lifted his hands to catch it, his fingers colliding with it as if they were mountains. At that moment his corporeal body grew taller and thinner. He became flatter, larger, and more non-material. The sword light passed through his palm, yet it didn't seem to hurt him. Qin Mu's divine art to enter the path. Grand overarching heavenly completion. Jing Baichuan howled and used all his cultivation to try and break this divine art. The grand overarching heaven was cracked as he took control of his body once again before inflating it. The sword light in Qin Mu's hand morphed into the first move of the Calamity Sword, Opening Calamity Sword. A sword light went straight for the heart of Jing Baichuan's brows. Jing Baichuan lifted his hands and clamped the Opening Calamity Sword at the final moments with his fingers. He coldly laughed and said, "Master has rehearsed this move of yours multiple times and broke it long ago."
Kvin mu unleashed a punch.
He focused thousands of apparitions, the martial path, and combat techniques into the one punch that he struck the Opening Calamity Sword with. Ki. The Opening Calamity Sword went through Jing Baichuan's fingers and went out the back of his head. Qin Mu retrieved his sword, and the broken sword entered the sheath that was still on his waist. He plainly said, "You're not accomplished enough yet. Even if you return to the Dragon Han era, you would merely be second-rate there, far from people like Nyo Sanduo." Boom! The celestial palace collapsed, and the numinous sky hall behind Jing Baichuan also crumbled. He stretched out his palm, seemingly wanting to stop the celestial palace he had cultivated from crumbling. Instead, his body fell along with the destroyed celestial palace. Eventually, all of the celestial palaces disappeared, turning into the spirit energy and force of heaven and earth, leaving only the corpse of Jing Baichuan, which fell onto the ruins of the Endless Clouds Palace. Qin Mu stepped forward and lifted up Yuchudu, who was among the ruins. He said solemnly, "Yenner, don't leave any survivors, not even their souls. I don't want Celestial Venerable how to trace it back to me." Upon hearing his order, Yenner got excited. She turned into a dragon sparrow and pounced on those 4 strong practitioners at the Jade Capital realm. At the same time, the dragon Qilin jumped onto the ship and charged towards the gods and devils on it. Yuchudu was out of breath and unable to stand up. He could only sit on the ground as he bowed at Qin Mu. Many thanks to Celestial Venerable Mu.
Qin Mu laughed.
Just call me Senior Uncle. Senior Uncle. Yuchudu was bewildered. Qin Mu gave a faint smile and was about to speak when suddenly, a woman's voice came from behind him. Her voice was pleasant as she faintly said, Celestial Venerable Mu. You've killed Celestial Venerable Hao's disciple. Are you not afraid to die? In that case, why did Heavenly Master not stop me? Qin Mu turned around and looked at Bai Yujing, who was standing nearby. Keifane, it's been a long time since we met. Is that jade pendant still on your primordial spirit? Bai Yujing was dressed from head to toe in white, different from the red clothing she used to wear in her previous life. Her figure was graceful and elegant like fine white jade, and her skin was as soft as snow. She met Qin Mu's gaze with a complex expression. She raised and then lowered her hands, seemingly in a dilemma. Celestial Venerable Mu. I'm the third heavenly master of the celestial heavens. Logically, I should arrest you and bring you to justice. However, you're also the benefactor who saved my life. Without your jade pendant, I might still be an ignorant girl getting killed by Son of Heavenin over and over again. Bai Yujing sighed, her breath smelling of orchids and irises. I discriminate clearly between grudges and gratitude. I won't pursue the matter this time, treating it as though nothing has happened. I can even help you hide this from Celestial Venerable Hao. Celestial Venerable Mu will part ways here. Bai Yujing trembled slightly and stopped walking. Qin Mu continued talking, saying, Don't you want to know about your reincarnation muddle-headedness? About why Son of Heavenin would want to kill you over and over again and then allow you to reincarnate? Did that vermilion bird feather make you recall anything? She took out the vermilion bird feather and stared at the vermilion bird, scared fire in a daze. The heart of Qin Mu's brows opened, and deep in the pupil of his eye, rows of runes of ancient primordial great Tao on the egg of celestial Emperor Taichu glowed, converging into sight. The Qin word land shook as the Yudu great Tao rippled, rushing into the grand primordium origin stone at the center of the Qin word land. The origin stone combined the Tao of Taichu with the Yudu great Tao, gradually raising the power of his third god eye. Qin Mu used the eye at the heart of his brows to look at Bai Yujing. Instantly he saw the experiences and encounters of this female emperor's entire life. From her birth to her becoming a divine arts practitioner, then becoming a god. He could see how she cheated death time and time again, avoiding Son of Heavenin's ambushes. He also saw the period during the founding emperor era, where her reputation shook the world, ambushing Son of Heavenin. Qin Mu's gaze pierced deeper, looking at all her previous lives, looking back upon how she died each time. Bai Yujing was still standing there. Suddenly, she tossed away the vermilion bird feather and smiled as she turned around. Celestial Venerable Mu, I don't want to know. I'm simply me, the one and only me. In this world, there's only one Bai Yujing. Her lovely hair fluttered, cutting off Qin Mu's line of sight. She then turned and left, walking off in a carefree manner. Bai Yujing came to the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge, then looked back and smiled. Celestial Venerable Mu, I'm not South Deity. If you want me to become South Deity, then you're making an enemy of me. She placed her palm on the sacrificial altar of the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge and walked into the light. Celestial Venerable Mu, Celestial Venerable Hao has lost his disciple, and White Deity has lost his beloved general. They will definitely come forth to investigate. I can buy you some time, but it's best that you leave now. The Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge collapsed as her figure disappeared. She really is a smart girl. Qin Mu looked at the collapsed altar and muttered, Should I wake her up to let her become South Deity, or should I not wake her up and let her continue to be Bai Yujing? He picked up the vermilion bird feather and studied it for a long time. Behind him, Yenner killed the 4 strong practitioners of the Jade Capital Realm, and immediately helped the Dragon Qilin kill the gods and devils on the ship that was under White Deity. Qin Mu looked at the vermilion bird feather and thought, waking up the god soul of South Deity is equivalent to killing Bai Yujing. However, isn't Bai Yujing South Deity? Even if South Deity Zhuke is awakened, Bai Yujing's memory won't disappear, and will become a part of South Deity's long memory. Yenner flew over and chirped, Young master, the deed is done. Where's my mother? Qin Mu handed the vermilion bird feather to her and said, Yenner, your mother didn't want to be South Deity. She was too clever and guessed that she was the reincarnation of South Deity from my words. However, she feels that being Bai Yujing or Kei Fein is better. She thinks that if she awakens the memory of South Deity, that would mean the end for Bai Yujing and Kei Fein. Yenner was a little confused and muttered. But Bai Yujing, Kei Fein and South Deity Zhu Kei, are they not her? Qin Mu put away the heavenly dragon treasure carriage and helped treat Yuchudu's broken bones. Bai Yujing has broken the spirit energy mutual shift bridge. She wants to delay Celestial Venerable Hao and White Deity's arrival here. But she also doesn't want us to return to the celestial heavens. She's more worried that I'll let her die again to revive the soul of South Deity. Yenner still didn't understand and muttered. But they are all her. Qin Mu couldn't help but think of Qin Fengqing. His experience was similar to Bai Yujing's. Back then, Qin Mu had thought that he was himself, the one and only him. However, he discovered that he was the second consciousness born from Qin Fengqing's corporeal body. He was just a consciousness born accidentally. It wasn't only his corporeal body that wasn't his, but his soul as well. All he had was his consciousness. Later, Qin Mu dug his eye out and was reborn. Only after that did he have his own soul. How was Bai Yujing's experience similar to his? Bai Yujing's experience was even worse. She was reincarnated for nearly 200 lifetimes, always struggling to survive, forcing herself to become smarter. Naturally, she would find it hard to accept that she wasn't herself but the reincarnation of South Deity. Disciple nephew, are you able to walk? Qin Mu asked after he was done attending to his injuries. Yuchudu stood up and moved around twice. He realized that the injuries on his body had recovered. The same couldn't be said about the injuries suffered by his primordial spirit. Qin Mu's creation technique could heal the flesh but wasn't as good at healing the wounds of primordial spirits. I can walk, senior uncle. Yuchudu hesitated and examined Qin Mu. I never heard my master mention that I have a senior uncle. You have 2 senior uncles. I'll tell you more when we have time. Qin Mu gave a flick, and the old gods that were guarding the endless clouds palace fell asleep. Their memories were tampered with by him, with the memory of seeing him and the rest wiped. He then smiled and said, let's go. We can't use the heavenly dragon treasure carriage anymore, as it will definitely leave a trace and be spotted by others, and Celestial Venerable Hao would know that it was me who killed his disciple. Disciple nephew, do you know of any shortcuts that can allow us to leave here and return to the celestial heavens quickly? Senior uncle, the closest route would be from White Earth Hope Prefecture, which is the central god prefecture of the 9 prefectures. There's a spirit energy mutual shift bridge there that leads to the White Deity Celestial Palace. If we walk from the starry sky, I'm afraid it'll take 50 or 60 years to reach the celestial heavens. Chapter 11:20 Killing a Few Ancient Gods. In that case, we shall set off from the White Deity Celestial Palace, Qin Mu said resolutely. Yuchudu hesitated and examined Qin Mu's expression. He probed. Was senior uncle trained in creation techniques? I followed my teacher in cultivating the celestial dipper technique. Within it, there are 7 forms of creation. It can change one's appearance and body, even to that of a half-god. Maybe it could help us avoid the celestial heavens line of sight, and not leave any traces. The dragon Qilin, who was standing beside him, shook his body and transformed into a dragon sparrow. He laughed. Does the creation technique look like this? Yuchudu got a fright and hurriedly nodded. Has this brother learned the celestial dipper technique before? Teacher said that the celestial dipper technique was created by him. How do you know this technique? The dragon Qilin burst into loud laughter. This isn't the celestial dipper technique, but a technique in the great educational heavenly devil scriptures. The celestial dipper technique is a technique that's derived from the great educational heavenly devil scriptures. Yuchudu was stunned as his revered image of Wei Suifeng suddenly collapsed. He murmured. Teacher said he created this technique. In that case, this great educational heavenly devil scriptures should be created by teacher as well. The dragon Qilin laughed. The great educational heavenly devil scriptures was created by the first heavenly master of the founding emperor era, Saint Woodcutter. The image of Wei Suifeng in Yuchudu's head collapsed again, shattering into pieces. He had respected Wei Suifeng as a celestial being, and had placed him highly in his heart. He didn't expect that the celestial dipper technique was actually from the great educational, heavenly devil scriptures. Disciple nephew, there's no need to listen to his nonsense. Qin Mu scolded with a laugh. Although the celestial dipper technique originated from the great educational heavenly devil scriptures, the great educational heavenly devil scriptures was too complicated. There were too many techniques in it. Most of them were just scratching the surface and didn't delve deep into the subject. Hence, the great educational heavenly devil scriptures were simply a way for people to become gods. However, Big Senior Brother Wei Suifeng combined his own experiences, comprehension, and other Emperor's Throne techniques to create the celestial dipper technique. He paused for a moment and said, "Except that it's now outdated." When Yuchuda heard this, he wanted to refute it for Wei Suifeng's sake. However, he remembered that Qin Mu only used cultivation at the True God realm to kill Celestial Venerable Hao's disciple Jing Baichuan. Jing Baichuan was a Jade Capital Realm individual similar to him, but Qin Mu was able to defeat him in one blow. From this, it seemed that the celestial dipper technique that he had laboriously cultivated was indeed outdated. His image of Wei Suifeng's invincibility once again crumbled. Qin Mu glanced at him and praised, "Disciple nephew, your aptitude and comprehension aren't bad at all. In a short time, you broke the God in your heart, greatly increasing the cultivation of your Tao heart." When Yuchudu gave a snort, Qin Mu let everyone and flew towards white earth of the 9 prefectures below. He sighed and said, "It's precisely because your master's celestial dipper technique is derived from the great educational heavenly devil scriptures that I didn't learn his technique. My techniques can be said to be of the same source as his. Cultivating the celestial dipper technique wouldn't let me have another celestial palace." Yuchudu saw that they didn't change their appearances and reminded him, "Senior uncle, it's best that we change our appearances. There's no need to."
Qin Mu laughed.
"I have an Emperor's Throne level consciousness. No matter who sees us, we won't appear as us in their eyes. Even for an Emperor's Throne practitioner, they won't be able to tell unless they pay attention." Yuchudu was bewildered. The White Earth Hope Prefecture was the central prefecture in the world of 9 prefectures, sitting directly in the center. If one looked down from the sky, the mountain peaks of this White Earth God Prefecture were white, and it was the same for its land. It was a unique sight. There were many white beasts in White Earth. They had white fur without any stray hairs. These strange beasts lived in the forest and were very difficult to spot. However, the flames of war raged across White Earth. 10 of thousands of divine arts practitioners under the command of gods and devils attacked cities and seized territories, capturing mortals and divine arts practitioners as slaves. Wars between nations were also common. They were wearing ferret furs and were dressed in white. The blood on the battlefield stained the clothes red and dyed the white sand red. There were corpses everywhere. Qin Mu saw that the customs of the Dragon Han era were preserved. When 2 major powers fought, they often pushed their slaves to the front. They set up simple sacrificial altars and used those slaves as blood offerings to lure and enlist the help of ancient gods or powerful half-gods. Qin Mu didn't see the arrival of the ancient gods in White Earth, but he saw many winged or one-eyed and four-armed half-gods descending, killing on the battlefield, unleashing their divine might. Why has this place become like this? Qin Mu frowned as he asked Yuchudu. It has always been like this. Yuchudu shook his head and said, "It's not just White Earth, it's the other 8 prefectures as well. I heard teachers say that the customs here are the same as those of the Dragon Han era. They rely on blood sacrifices to invite the gods to the mortal realm to aid in battle and conquer territories. Once divine arts practitioners become gods, they rise to the ancestral star of the 9 prefectures, waiting for others to invite them down to the lower bound through blood sacrifice." Teacher wanted to change the 9 prefectures and the 3-pillar heavens, but ultimately, he didn't have much success. When he was still alive, Qin Mu had a strange expression as he said, "The Emperor of Endless Clouds isn't dead." Yuchuda got a fright and cried out, "Teacher isn't dead?" I cried terribly at his funeral for more than 10 days. He couldn't help but shake his head again. My senior and junior brothers thought that teacher had been taken to the god execution stage and was doomed eternally. Hence, I was sad for a long time and simply left the Endless Clouds Palace to become an outlaw. Except that now my senior and junior brothers are dead. His expression dimmed before he roused his spirits. When teacher was here as the emperor of endless clouds, he planned to change the tradition of 9 prefectures and 3 pillar heavens. The 9 ancient gods of the 9 prefectures and the 3 ancient gods of 3 pillar heavens sought him out and told him that these ancient rules couldn't be changed. Seeing that teacher was of the human race, they would remove humans from the sacrificial offerings as a way of giving face to teacher. Teacher refused and they fought. Qinmu asked, "What happened after that?" Those 12 ancient gods were defeated and agreed to do away with the blood sacrifices. Yuchudu paused for a moment and said, "However, they turned around and complained to White Deity, who rebuked teacher and said that these rules existed in the entire Western Heaven. He asked teacher if he intended to break the rules of Western Heaven. Only then did teacher realize that Western Heaven was still in the Dragon Han era and hadn't changed. He gave off a long sigh and said, Teacher then lowered his head and apologized to the ancient gods of the 9 prefectures and 3 pillar heavens and removed the human race from the sacrificial offerings. The 12 ancient gods didn't put him on the spot, just giving a few words of sarcasm that teacher laughed off. However, he cried for a long time after he returned. Qinmu's heart pounded as he said slowly, "The Emperor of Endless Clouds cries?" Yuchudu turned his head and wiped his eyes. "My brothers and I were all orphans picked up by teacher. We didn't have good aptitudes, with only me being slightly better than the rest. Our Endless Clouds palace was mocked by others as an orphan palace. My days with teacher were happy and carefree. After that, teacher ran into trouble and was taken away by the celestial heavens. We thought that teacher was already dead, so we left for the lower bound on a whim." He raised his head and said astringently, "After teacher left, the 9 prefectures and 3 pillar heavens returned to their former ways. Whenever war between major powers and nations breaks out, they still use humans as sacrifices, worshipping the ancient gods of the 9 prefectures and 3 pillar heavens. My brothers and I rebelled because we didn't accept this. I didn't expect." Qinmu patted his shoulder and said, "Don't be sad, your senior and junior brothers will watch over you and bless you from the heavens. Let's go. Where is the ancestral star of those 9 ancient gods of the 9 prefectures?" Yuchudu was stunned and asked puzzledly, "Senior uncle, aren't we going to the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge to head towards the White Deity Celestial Palace? Why are we going to see the ancient gods?" Qinmu looked at the sky, his eyes gentle and as smooth as jade as he said, "The ancient gods and I are in a natural alliance. The ancient gods need me, and I also need the ancient gods. But the ancient gods of the 9 prefectures and 3 pillar heavens have clearly submitted themselves to the celestial heavens and become the lackeys of White Deity. So," he retracted his gaze and revealed a dazzling smile that felt like sunshine during spring, "I'll bring you to kill a few ancient gods."